Almost 2 decades ago. Black Zetsu waited patiently in the clearing. His body was that of a standard white Zetsu, one of the few that Madara had brought out from the ghetto mazo when he first found it. The man had been unable to bring out any more than 5 without the special would-release chakra of a senju, of course. That had been how Hagoromo had designed it. Indra to control it, Azura to power it, neither able to wield it without the other. As if Black Zetsu hadn't thought of ways around that within months of the old man's death. Still, 5 had been enough. He had been able to convince Madara they were simply artificial humans, and being able to possess willing, physical bodies on a whim had been delightful. Take now, for instance, with the right clothing and a smattering of Jinjutsu, he was able to disguise himself as an ordinary Suna shinobi. From there, manipulating people became so much easier. There was a rustling in the trees around them, and 4 figures dropped down in front of him. 3 adult ninja wearing mist headbands, and 1 young girl with the iconic swirl of the Hidden Leaf Village. Her eyes were lidded, and her posture was slumped. This one's awful quiet. Zetsu smirked, leaning down and putting a hand under her chin, tilting her head up. Seal's working like a charm. One of the mist ninja chuckled. Hey, bitch! Snap out of it. The girl's eyes snapped into sharp lucidity, and she immediately tried to bite Zetsu's fingers off. He pulled away before she could do so, which left her free to scream Abido. Kakashi! Zetsu punched her in the face, and she shut up. Punching people was something he had very much missed, while essentially formless. Now. He told her, wagging his finger in her face while she spat out a tooth. Nobody likes a girl who doesn't know how to keep her mouth shut. Whoa, dude. Said one of the mist ninja, the youngest looking. You can't just say that. I'm sorry? Zetsu turned a glare on him. I'm just saying, man, it's not the Warring States period anymore. I mean, women should stay quiet? You can't stereotype girls as Sabuza. Said one of the others, patiently. You killed your entire graduating class. Yeah, indiscriminately. I didn't dictate who I murdered based on gender identity, orientation, whatever. Zetsu sighed. What about the other 2? The 3 shared a shifty look. We don't know. The meanest looking said. They escaped soon after the sealing operation. One of them's an Uchiha, awakened their dojutsu. We sent a pair to hunt them down, but they haven't reported back yet. We were too busy retrieving the it doesn't matter. Zetsu dismissed. He already knew full well what had happened to the other 2. But this is the one with the 3 tails sealed in her? This one has a name. The girl declared, looking at him icily. I'm Rin. Rin Noera. No. Zetsu tooted. You are Bijou. Bijou host. Everything else about you is irrelevant. Oh, we're objectifying her now? Zabuza spoke up. Yeah, as a weapon of mass destruction. His associate exclaimed. It's still not enough. Zetsu held up a hand. He reached into a pocket and pulled out a scroll, proffering it to them. As Master Sasori agreed. The knowledge of the direct control seal is yours, provided you use your bijou to attack Konoha. And hadn't that plan taken a long time to get into motion? Agreed. The meanest looking nodded. It's a damn good deal. Your Kage really let you get away with this? We have our reasons. Zetsu smiled. The man reached out a hand to take the scroll, and it was severed at the wrist. Zetsu made a show of recoiling in mock fear as the man screamed, then gargled, as a knife flashed across his throat. Said knife was held in the hands of a small boy. A boy with white hair, a face mask, and a single Sharingan. Kakashi! The girl called Rin shouted, overjoyed. Ah, how nice! Damn it. We need more edge. This obnoxious little jonin shouldn't have gotten his hands on the Sharingan, he ought to be dead. Was the 3rd teammate kinder than anticipated? Was it just practicality that had led him to give his eye away? No matter. You don't scheme for millennia without picking up the ability to think on your feet. Rin no era. He shouted, and thank you so much for giving me your names. Unleash the three tails. Slay Kakashi with it, and release it upon Konoha. No! Screamed Kakashi. He finished the second Mist Ninja and spun, throwing the kunai. The third, Zabuza, had ran, hollering damnations at his Mizukage. Black Zetsu let it land, burying in the throat of his brainless host, and quickly detached himself, slinking away as a shadow into the underbrush. Rin was screaming, clutching her stomach, as Kakashi ran over to her, grabbing her shoulders. Rin! He shouted, voice suddenly that of the 12-year-old he technically was, and not the Umbu agent he could be. Rin, breathe, okay, stay with me, weaken heart. She gasped out. Kakashi, it's on our hearts. You have to Zetsu tuned it out. They were no longer relevant. Neither was the body he'd had to let die. Out of the 5 Zetsu Madara had pulled out, 3 had now been destroyed pulling off various plans. 1 more was safe in his hideout, and the other Black Zetsu comfortably settled into the shadow of Obito Uchiha, half of his body replaced by plant matter, and conveniently keeping him rooted to the spot, and prepared to enjoy the show. In the clearing, Kakashi prepared a Chidori. Present-day Naruto remembered back at the start of his first adventure into Wave, when the biggest threat he'd had to face was two Jonin-level combatants. Good times. Now he was fighting a deranged god. Death! Roared Jibito, Jibito. That's a genius nickname, I'm keeping it, as he charged straight for Naruto and stabbed with his staff. Naruto tried to substitute away, but Jibito was too fast, so by the time his clone was able to swap places with him he'd already been impaled. So already not off to a good start. He reappeared halfway across the battlefield and grimaced in pain, charging up a Raisin Shuriken as Sasuke swung down towards Jibito with his Susanoo. 3 of the black orbs formed a barrier, and the purple avatar straight up disintegrated on contact with it, as another black orb flew up aiming to hit Sasuke dead in his center of mass. Naruto redirected his throw, and the Raisin Shuriken was able to collide with the orb and knock it off course, giving Sasuke just enough time to jump away. Jibito howled, his face a rictus of hatred, and gave chase. Naruto had no doubts that if Obito's senses had been intact, everyone would already be dead. The fact that the Jinchuriki had used nothing but taijutsu and the black balls was proof enough of that. He looked down again and his eyebrows raised, the small hole in his stomach was still there. The fuck, the orbs cancel all regeneration. Kakashi shouted. You can't heal if you get Jibito's head snapped in the direction of the sound. Kakashi. He growled. Oh no. Gulped the copy ninja. Obito, remember the plan, you Kakashi. Jibito blasted through the air towards him. Oh yeah, the Ten-Tails host could fly. Apparently. Uzumaki barrage. Naruto shouted, and promptly sagged. His supply of Sage Chakra split itself into 1,000 and became nothing, but 1,000 Naruto all created Rasengan and jumped in Jibito's way. To his horror, they barely slowed him down, 1 swing of the staff and a wave of dark power cut a whopping swathe through the army. Still, it was enough for Kakashi to escape the Jinchuriki's immediate notice, and hopefully to run far, far away. How the fuck do we stop this guy? Sasuke shouted, landing next to Naruto. I don't know. Naruto shot back. Could we lead him to Madara? We could try. Good luck kiting the most terrifying thing I've ever seen in my life. Jibito heard them and turned his attention back towards them. Blood. He howled. Rin. Die. Okay, got it, nonverbal communication from now on. Sasuke Jinjutsu'd across. Yeah, got it. Naruto sent through the link of Kyuubi chakra. He'd immediately buffed his teammates' reserves the moment they'd met up. We're the most powerful thing we can do. I could set your Bija bomb on fire? Jibito started flying towards them no time. Hey, remember that one time when we smashed our brand new high-risk superpowers into each other? Sasuke gave him an incredulous look. Are you in? Jibito, blasting in from a kilometer away, charged up a swing. Fine. Take my hand. Naruto did, focusing. He'd thought balancing his chakra with the kyuubi had been hard, but this was a whole nother ballpark. For one thing, wind on fire was like oil on water, they did not mix. Trying to take his chakra, buff it with the kyuubi, then apply wind release to it, then prevent that from immediately exploding the moment it came into contact with Sasuke's Amaterasu flames? Imagine trying to make a bowl of cereal, except you're not allowed to rest the bowl, milk, cereal, or spoon on any surface that isn't your body. And also you have to do the whole thing in 5 seconds, and if you spill anything you explode and die. That's basically how hard this was. But Sasuke was Naruto's teammate. And he wasn't going to fail friendship check as obvious as this one. Crying out dramatically in unison, Naruto and Sasuke thrust the vermilion Amaterasu Rasen Kunai Shuriken towards Chibito. The music reached peak intensity. And then their attack shattered harmlessly against the black surface of the staff. The change in expression their faces simultaneously went through would have been hilarious if they hadn't both been absolutely fucking terrified. Their combined relative momentum continued to take them forwards, now empty hands coming within inches of the staff, a hand clamped on each of their backs, and then they disappeared. They reappeared some distance away, immediately landing in a heap as their rescuer let them go. What in the ever-loving Naruto turned around, shaking his head and trying to calm his ridiculous heartbeat after his near-death experience. And that was when he saw his father. "Hey kids!" beamed Minato Namikaze. "Glad to see you're both doing all right." Naruto, oh my god, you've grown so much. Look at you. You're so tall now. And you did manage to make friends with the kyuubi. That's my boy. His name is Kurama, and yeah, dad? Naruto gaped. How the hell are you here? Edo Tensei. Sasuke realized, taking in the cracks on the Hokage's skin. Hinata came through for us. That she did. Minato nodded, giving Naruto a wink. Nice pull, kiddo. Smart girl, dedicated. She split off to go get someone else, not sure who else she thinks can help out. Oh, speaking of help, as if on cue, in reality, Minato had calculated their speeds and prepared for the exact time when they would arrive. Tobirama Senju and Hiruzen Sarutobi also appeared. Tobirama took one look at Sasuke and scowled. Uchiha. Oh, it's the racist dickhead. Sasuke scowled right back. Yeah, my family has told me all about you, and your fucking children, please. Focus. Hiruzen interceded, looking past them into the middle distance. There was the sound of an explosion. I believe we have a fight to get back to. Ugh. Fine. Sasuke made an I'm watching you gesture at Tobirama, then stepped back to look at them all. Aren't we missing one? My brother is preoccupied. Tobirama replied. One side of his lips quirked upwards. Said he has a date. Hashirama. Howled a voice from one side of the battlefield. There was a beat, and then, Madara. Howled a voice from the other side. Tracking ritual complete, the two moved towards each other. Hinata crashed through the roof of the castle on the moon. For the love of Hamura! Screeched Tonari's voice, and he quickly staggered out of a nearby room to, not exactly, look at her. What's going, hey cousin? Hinata breezed, walking past him. Oh. You. Tonari paused. Then did you just destroy my ceiling a little? Come with me. Hanabi's room's this way, right? Hinata didn't stop, moving precisely as fast as she thought she could without leaving him in the dust. Alright, fine. Cammy, woman, you just scared the hell out of me. I'm sure you'll manage. Why are you here? The war's still going on down there. Oh, I know. Hinata made her way up to her sister's hallway. We accidentally awakened an ancient evil. The genjutsu on Hanabi, you said it was a Koto Amatsukami, right? You awakened a wait, are you the reason the Geto Mazo went? It's complicated, explain later. The genjutsu? Yes, that's what those two called it when they put it on us. Toneri, looking incredibly disheveled and off balance, fell into step beside her. He had resorted to a blindfold again, as missing for obvious reasons, but one of his puppets floated along behind him, presumably working the same way Kankaros did. Why is it important? Because I think I can break it. Hinata declared. No, I know I can. But breaking the Koto Amatsukami is impossible. The universe does not care what you believe to be impossible. I tore one out of my own mind less than a month ago. She smirked, reaching the door. Breaking it won't be a problem. What might be difficult is getting it to divulge the location of my sister's eyes. Hanabi. I'm coming in. Wait, I don't. Hinata dramatically threw open the doors. Sat on the bed, Neji Hyuuga let out a squeak at the sudden intrusion. She dropped a book, that was clue 1, and looked up, that was clue 2, at Hinata. Big sis. Hanabi cried out. You're so grown up and pretty. Now that was clue 3. But Hinata still didn't realize what was going on until clue 4, which was when Hanabi started crying. Hinata's jaw dropped as she looked into her sister's wide, white eyes. You hoped they were there the whole time. Toneri chuckled from behind her. Right in her sockets. Must have been the Koto Amatsukami's work, preventing me from checking there at any point. Now Hinata was the one off balance. So the genjutsu's gone? When? How? Only a few hours after you left. Hanabi explained, gleefully. Toneri said. Hinata punched Toneri, who went, oh come on, are we still doing that? That cousin Neji said that there were a total of 122 different conditions for it to dispel itself. But then Toneri came in not that long ago, and I'd told him to send some puppets down to see if you were safe, and he said, Hanabi, it's crazy. Madara's down there. And all of a sudden there was this snap inside my head. And I remembered that I could see contingencies. Toneri explained. In case anything worse than me happened, I'd be able to access the Tensiken. I imagine they expected I could help stop it. Hinata looked between him and her sister. But you didn't take the eyes? Of course not. He looked sheepishly down. I'm not sure I ever could have, even if I'd still believed in destroying the earth. Hinata took a deep breath. Then said, you may have to take them after all, actually. There was a silence. What do you mean? Hanabi looked at her, hurt. I just got them back. Hinata clenched her fist. I know, it's just you weren't wrong about Madara being down there, and now someone's become the Jinchuriki of the 10 Tails. None of us have the power to fight him. Not me, not Naruto, not even the ex-Hokage. But you just might. She turned back to Toneri. With the Tensiken, you were powerful enough to take me on 10 times over, you just didn't have the skill. Last I saw before getting out of range, Obito was fighting the same way, only he was actually winning. If you let me or Sasuke into your head with a Genjutsu to direct your actions, you might be able to stand up to him, at least long enough for one of us. Do you want me to tear Hanabi's eyes out just so that you can puppet me in a fight? Toneri looked furious at the concept. You can use mine if you really want to. Hinata waved an arm in an ambivalent gesture. I don't care. It's not a long-term consequence, and I'd take it even if it was, but right now, if we don't win this, there's a decent chance that our entire planet will be destroyed. Toneri Hanabi spoke up, hands clenching on her bedsheets. If Hinata says it's what we need to do, then no. Toneri swept a hand down. I won't allow it. But that's only. He shot a look at Hinata, who was about to interrupt, because I have a better alternative. Which is? Hinata demanded. Let's be quick. Every second we waste up here is a dozen more opportunities for my teammates to die. Then we will be quick. Toneri spun on his heel. Hanabi? Your bedtime is hereby delayed indefinitely. Both of you, follow me. There's something. It's high time I showed you both. Obito found himself in a strange position wherein he had nobody to try and kill. This lasted for a period of almost 5 whole seconds, which for a being of his processing speed was an almost unendurably long time. If his enemies had hoped that this time would cause him to mellow out and regain his senses, they would have been wrong. He gripped his staff in 2 hands, and it began to shift and change. Condensed black chakra swirled outwards into a double helix, then extended, until it became something that resembled a sword in about the same way Samahata did. That is to say, it barely even vaguely resembled a sword, but nobody's was going to dare to tell its owner that. Jibito swept it up and span it around his head, before roaring out to the world in challenge. A challenge was what he got. Maximum multi-shadow shuriken. The light from the moon seemed to dim, slightly. Jibito looked up, and saw what was causing it. Falling down from above was a storm of shuriken. And that's not storm used for poetic effect, there was about as much steel in that air as there usually is water during a monsoon. Jibito swung his sword up, and a blast of pressure obliterated every projectile in a dome around him. The remainder tore down into the floor, leaving a 10-meter sphere of intact ground surrounded by a field of sharp metal sticking up like blades of grass. Some of those were shadow shuriken. Some, noticeably 3-pronged, definitely weren't. Minato and Naruto appeared without so much as a whisper on Jibito's right, at the exact same time that Tobirama and Sasuke appeared on his left. He wasted vital microseconds trying to pick a target, before roaring and swinging towards the largest chakra signature he could sense, that being, the pair of blondes. The sword bit down towards them, but was blocked by Naruto's big ball Rasengan. It quickly tore said Rasengan apart, but that gave Minato enough time to dart into his guard and bury a kunai into his throat. On the other side, Sasuke activated his Susanoo and punched, but the black orbs came round to form an impenetrable wall that made the purple avatar shatter ineffectually. Tobirama vanished again, this time appearing inside the shield and slapping a seal on Jibito's left cheek. Multi-shadow seal. He growled, before the surface of the black shield bent inwards and tore a hole through his midriff. Then Jibito's sword broke Naruto's Rasengan. He had a brief moment of panic as he was slammed into the floor, the sword swinging towards him, and then Minato appeared next to him, grabbed him, and they both disappeared. Then Tobirama's technique took effect, and the seal on Jibito's cheek split in 2, then so did each of those, then the first 2 detonated, then extrapolate that out a couple hundred times. The resulting explosion was probably the 3rd or 4th biggest in the war so far. When it was over, the completely destroyed Tobirama regenerated, except for the hole where the black matter had stabbed him. His eyes widened, as a completely intact Jibito tore the kunai out of his own throat with one hand, and swung his sword with the other. Again, Minato teleported in, grabbed Tobirama, and teleported out again before it could land. Your signature technique is really broken. Naruto panted, when Minato reappeared with them all 1,000 meters away. If you hadn't tagged us all at the start, we'd be dead. And did you sync yours with T-Bone here? His signature? Tobirama looked outraged. I invented the flying Raijin. His eyes shifted left and he muttered needed a way to sneak in and out of Mito's room without getting noticed, and also to kill Uchiha. Oh, you are cool too. Naruto allowed. You can use the shadow clone jutsu to replicate seals? I never thought to use my technique like that. Your technique? Tobirama glared. I invented that one too. Am I just being forgotten here? I mean, we mastered them and took them way beyond what you were capable of. Minato held a fist out, his son bumped it. But you do get credit for the inspiration. The shadow clone was based on your brother's wood clone, right? Officially. Tobirama coughed. Unofficially Uzumaki stamina, gentlemen. It's not easy to keep up with, even for me. But shadow clones don't get tired, and Mito was a very creative woman. Naruto held a hand up. Hi, real quick, question. I'm not usually good at picking up subtle wordings, but that's twice you've just implied you were fucking your brother's wife. Right? Like I'm not misreading that? We got the Hyuuga to join Konoha by inventing the caged bird seal for them. Tobirama explained. We got the Uzumaki to partner up with us with a political marriage. And we got the Uchiha to join because Hashirama and Madara were real close. He sighed. But Hashirama needed an heir. And Mito was hot. I'm not apologizing, my brother knew damn well it was going on. Wait. Naruto held a hand up. Are you telling me that the reason Wood style died out wasn't because of the Senju intermarrying too much, it was because Hashirama was just hella gay? Yeah, basically. I love my village so goddamn much. Guys. Bigger issue. Sasuke pointed out. Back in the battlefield, a bunch of Hiruzen clones were trying to pin Jibito down with a barrage of massive elemental attacks and Rashomon gates. It wasn't working super well. We need to find a way around the balls. They just ignore anything we try and block them with. Not my attacks. Naruto pointed out. I've been able to counter them a little with Rasengan and Rasen Shuriken. Well, why the hell? Sasuke's eyes widened. Wait. Did you put Sage Chakra in the Rasengan? Yeah, I did. Naruto realized. You think Senjutsu counters them? From what the Sharingan shows me, fucking Uchiha, they're composed of just about every type of chakra at once. Purer than anything I've ever seen. Sasuke explained. But if they aren't made out of Senjutsu, that still leaves us with only Naruto. Minato warned. I was never on Hashirama's level. I can get into Sage mode, but it'll take me full seconds to do it. Actually, Sasuke narrowed his eyes. He stared into empty space, right hand gripping Samahata tighter. I might be able to help too. On the battlefield, Tobirama appeared next to Hiruzen, grabbing his old student by the arm and pulling him away from a swing of the black sword. Together, they were able to teleport between all the flying Raijin kunai in the battlefield. Have you gotten slower in your age? The Senjutsu snorted. Hiruzen chuckled. You know I could never keep up with you. What now, do we have a plan? Part of one. Tobirama explained. We're setting the stage for your little grandkids. That's all we get to? Yep. They're stealing the whole show. Tobirama scowled. Fucking millennials across the carnage, Hashirama and Madara finally found each other. Oh, hey, how's it going? Hashirama waved, cheerfully. The sounds of battle raged around them. Been a while, hasn't it? Over 100 years, as I understand. Madara nodded. Or a few hours, depending on how you count it. Still too long, I've missed you. Hashirama stretched out his arms. Hey, random thought, remember that one time you horribly betrayed everyone you ever cared about? Yup. Madara smirked. Wanna see me do it again? I'm contractually obligated to give you one last chance to return to the light side. Hashirama warned him. I don't know what you're planning on doing with the 10 tails, but I get the feeling it's hardly kosher. Matter of fact, I sincerely doubt it's going to make you happy. Probably not. But everyone else is going to love it. With that highly cryptic statement, Madara pointed down his war fan. Let's end the showboating here. You know it makes me sick. Oh, come on. Can't I showboat a little? Sure. If you want me to kill you the way I killed you last time. I died from chakra exhaustion after restraining the Kyuubi long enough for them to seal it into Mito. That was at most 40% your fault enough. Come, Hashirama. Hashirama snorted. Oh, you have definitely lost the privilege to tell me when to come at this point. Then Madara launched a majestic destroyer flame, and Hashirama countered with a giant wood dragon, and Madara activated his perfect Susanoo and grabbed it, and Hashirama entered Sage mode, and in the center of the battlefield, two Chunin faced off against a Genin. Yeah, put it like that, and it doesn't sound quite as cool. Okay, so you can give me Sage mode how? Sasuke asked Samahata, as Minato teleported them right up in Jubito's firing range. Not Sage mode exactly, but something similar. His sword replied. Recall when we turned Kabuto into a kebab? You had me drain his Sage chakra. Wait, you still have all of that? Well, I hardly throw it out. That would be wasteful. Samahata chuckled. I can coat myself in it, so if you swing me, I'll withstand the orbs. Naruto sprinted ahead of them with a roar, thrusting a Raisin Shuriken towards Jibito. The orbs came around to block it, and the attack drilled into the defense. Jibito's sword flew down from above, but Sasuke wound up an entirely gratuitous upward swing with Samehada. There was a crash, and Sasuke's arms burned, but his sword didn't break. For the first time, genuine shock passed across Jibito's face. Then the rage was back, and he swung his sword again and again. Sasuke may have been technically able to withstand the attacks, but he was still facing an opponent an order of magnitude stronger than him. He was batted backwards, and Jibito reached downwards to grab Naruto by the throat. He yanked up the glowing Uzumaki, and another orb swung around, and then Minato was there, grabbing Naruto by the shoulder. Jibito was ready for it this time, however. All the orbs converged on Minato's location, and a few of them managed to crash into him before he could vanish again. When Minato dropped Naruto back off next to Sasuke, he was peppered with holes, and his flaky, dust-filled insides could be seen. Damn it. This is messing with my chakra supply. He warned them. Another hit and I won't be able to teleport you. He won't land one. Naruto looked angry. Motherfucker isn't gonna kill my dad again. Sage chakra is being drawn to this guy like a magnet and I can snatch it up on the way. I'm gonna enhance the Kyuubi avatar with it. Sasuke, the moment you get the chance, cut him up. He ran forwards, golden aura flashing and growing until a giant fox was bounding across the terrain. Well, I'm not letting him outdo me, Sasuke growled, standing and running forwards. Samehada, I need to put the sage chakra in my Susanoo, can we do that? You can't access my chakra reserves. The purple sword told him. At least not, well, you can if you mantle me. Remember what Kisame did? Oh no, I am not letting you go all parasitic on me, symbiotic. Samehada corrected, huffily. And what are you complaining about? I drain your chakra to make you better in a fight. You know what else does that? Oh yes, every other technique you know. That Sasuke took a moment to think the logic through. Huh. Yeah, okay then. Hit me. Finally Samehada seemed far too happy about it. What vibe are we going for? Oni. Demon, oh, I like your style. Fair warning, this might tickle. It began to shift, and spread up his arm. Up ahead, Naruto punched down with a giant fist. He clashed with the shield that formed around Jibito, and was actually able to crack it and force him down to land on the floor. Unfortunately, that just pissed him off more. His blade extended until it was almost 10 times the length of his body, and he batted aside the next 2 punches before leaping up and swinging it into the fox's face like a baseball bat. Naruto's avatar cracked and went stumbling as Jibito flew above him, gripped his sword in 2 hands, and took a drop kick to the face. The impact of Sasuke's sandaled feet broke Jibito's neck immediately, but it almost as quickly repaired itself as he tumbled back through the air and righted himself with a roar. Sasuke landed next to a recovering Naruto, looked over, and smirked. Yes. I'm finally taller than you. Naruto took in his teammate's ash-gray skin covered in black markings, fingers that extended into claws, and the sage chakra bubbling off him. Then looked up at his head and snorted. Just 'cause you have 6-inch horns now doesn't mean you're taller. Oh, bullshit. Then Jibito was coming in again, and they refocused. His first swing met the fist of a purple Susanoo, now glowing brighter and covered in black sigils, and this time, the avatar withstood it. Sasuke punched him twice, then ducked, and Naruto's fox jumped in overhead to slam Jibito down into the earth. It didn't stop him for a moment, he rocketed back up and carved a hole through the Susanoo's chest on his way. Naruto tried to kick Jibito away, but he caught the foot and heaved. Almost comically, and in complete violation of any kind of momentum law, if there were any of those left, he yanked the fox around himself and threw it away, leaving it to crash into the terrain some kilometers away. Sasuke wrapped him up in a chain of Magatama beads, but he just flexed and they shattered. So he repeated the trick with the chain of raisin kunai he'd used against Kabuto, and that at least did something. The black orbs around Jibito were sent flying, and one noticeably shattered entirely, but his sword remained stubbornly between him and the attack. Just as it did when he spun around and batted away a bijou bomb launched by Naruto, rejoining the battle. "Oh, I know that sword," said Samahata. "It's Nunaboko." "Oh yeah?" Sasuke almost laughed at the absurd comment. "What's she like?" "A harlot." Samahata snarled, with a venom that surprised him. "Think she's such hot shit because Hagoromo used her to fight while he was the Ten-Tails Jinchuriki. As if there was anyone for him to fight. Well, guess who he used when he wanted to cut up the Ten-Tails? That's right, you slut, me." "Ah." Sasuke blinked. "Good to know, but how do we beat her?" "She can't lose a clash," Samahata grudgingly admitted. "You'll never break her or overpower her, as far as we know. But that only lasts as long as her wielder maintains complete conviction in their actions. She'll shatter if he doubts what he's doing, but since he's enraged like this, oh." Sasuke understood. "Like a Sith." "Come again?" "He's using the intensity of his emotions to maintain the conviction that what he's doing is right, like the Sith do, while the Jedi maintain that conviction because they just follow what the Force tells them to," and he stopped. Coughed aloud. "Sorry. Star Wars nerd. But I think I have an idea. Naruto!" he shouted, relying on the leftover Kyuubi chakra he was borrowing to relay his words throughout the battlefield. "You know that thing we tried that didn't work? Let's try it again." Naruto, showing complete faith in his teammate, simply grinned and replied, "Got it." "And Kakashi?" Sasuke looked down and spotted his sensei, wisely staying on the outskirts of the conflict. "I need you to send me something." Naruto and Sasuke backed up towards each other and linked the hands of their two avatars. Jibito once again blasted towards them through the air, winding up the sword of Nunaboko for a swing. Once again, this time on a much larger scale, and with a generous extra helping of Sage Chakra, the two created a condensed structure of chakra and destructive potential, and thrust it forwards. Only this time, right before Jibito's attack met theirs, Sasuke met his eyes. Now, anyone with Obito's present level of Sage Mode, not to mention the Rinnegan, could read through pretty much any Genjutsu they came into contact with, and dismiss it with barely even a conscious thought. But they would still have to acknowledge it when it landed. They'd still have to see it. Eyes straining, Sasuke bombarded Jibito with the greatest weapon he possessed. Every happy memory Kakashi Hatake had of their time as Team Minato. "Kakashi, get your lazy ass out of bed, guys, look at the stars tonight. Aren't they pretty? Well, excuse me if I want to get my sleep, rest is important, okay, if I beat you this time, you're paying for my dinner this evening, heck yeah. I knew we could get those bells. As if teamwork could ever, boys, quit fighting, you're making us look bad in front of the instructors. Hey Obito! I brought you your homework. Come on, Obito, you said it yourself. You're gonna be the greatest ninja in history, well done Obito. I knew you'd get that forehead protector if you, Obito." Obito's eyes widened, a single coherent thought forming beneath the boiling pool of rage inside his mind, and bubbling up to the surface. "Rin?" he whispered. The sword of Nunaboko shattered like glass, and Naruto and Sasuke's attack blew a hole through his chest. Almost 2 decades ago. A 12-year-old Obito Uchiha awoke, and immediately noticed he was in much less pain than he had any right to be. To be more specific, the half of his body that really ought to have been well, not there, was apparently completely fine. Or no, not fine. It wasn't hurting, but it was wrong in a way he didn't know how to describe. What the hell, that was when the memories crashed in of the other day. The kidnapping. The mist ninja. The rocks, his eye, Kakashi, Rin. "Oh, good, you're awake." A sickly sweet voice reached his attention, and he jerked upright, taking in his surroundings. His newly monoscopic vision would take some getting used to, but the basics weren't hard to figure out. 1. Dark cave. 2. Scary black and white dude lounging on a rock in the corner. "Where am I?" Obito croaked out, realizing he hadn't drank anything in days. A cave, sort of in the middle of the continent somewhere. It gestured vaguely. Sort of southwest-ish of Konoha. Your maps change so often, I cannot for the life of me remember where the borders are at the moment. And who are you? Obito asked. The man, if it even was a man, and Obito was starting to doubt, wasn't wearing any sort of clan or village insignia. You may call me Zetsu. It smiled at him. I'm the one that saved your life back there. Well, thanks, I suppose. Obito got to his feet, finally looking down at himself. Oh, that is weird. He poked his new arm with one finger. It was kinda squishy. What about my teammates? Less well off. Zetsu sighed. You saw what happened. Kakashi murdered Rin. The three tails tore out of her in its death throes, destroying everything nearby, though Kakashi was able to escape the chaos thanks to some timely intervention by his sensei. Well, I suppose you could hardly call it timely, he might have come a few minutes earlier, no? It was smirking again. Or perhaps things would have played out the same regardless. That Minato does seem like one to do whatever he deems necessary, don't you think? I imagine, if necessary, he might have killed Rin himself. Obito's fists tightened. Why did you save me? He whispered. I require your assistance. Zetsu told him. And I thought that someone of your unique temperament and abilities might be able to help me. I sensed a kindred spirit in you, Obito Uchiha. Having seen the things you have, having witnessed this ghastly war plaguing the land, I think you might understand. How wonderfully cryptic of you. You managed to use all those words and describe absolutely nothing. Obito had no idea what to say, so he opted for what he thought Kakashi would have said. Though that led to thoughts about Kakashi, then to thoughts about Rin. Not now, Obito, damn it. Focus for once in your life. Zetsu just chuckled, however. I'll be more straightforward. There is a young man, only a few years older than you, in fact, who I have given a small present to. The grin soured. He intends to squander it. Our relationship has broken down somewhat, and I require an able-bodied individual to act in my stead. Meaning? Obito was still very confused. I stuck a Rinnegan in a kid called Nagato Uzumaki, and now he wants to kill me. Zetsu simplified even further. He's planning on taking over the world and capturing all the bijou, but he's not doing it properly. I need you to go and assist him, guide him, and if necessary, murder his ass and steal the eyes from his body to do it yourself. And there, it means mantle the amalgamation of the nine-tailed beasts and become a god. Ha! Ha! Said Obito. He backed up a step. Listen, I'm super grateful and all, but I really have to report back to my village, and he turned and started walking. Stop, said Zetsu, quietly. Obito stopped. His lone eye widened when he realized that he had no intention of stopping, yet was rooted to the floor anyway. That seal they put in you? Zetsu continued, idly picking his teeth. Still there. Don't worry, it doesn't just give anyone the power to own your body. And I haven't put any additional commands in it yet. Oh, bullshit. I don't want this to be contentious, Obito. Zetsu sighed. I do genuinely believe that you understand what I'm aiming for, here. What I want is world peace. I'm trying to create a world where nobody has to die, where no tragedy like what happened yesterday ever has to happen again. Isn't that what you want? Obito, by that point, had completely tuned him out. The young boy was thinking faster than he had ever thought in his life. First of all, there were metaphors about gilded cages. This Zetsu character owned him, however nicely it wanted to put it. And seriously, did it genuinely think that its pleas would get it anywhere? This wasn't about whether or not he was joining it, this was about him finding the optimum route to escape. The seal should be on my heart, right? Experimentally, he attempted to draw a kunai and stab himself. His body didn't respond. So that's one restriction already. Who knows how many more like this are already on me? Who knows how deep the control can go? Zetsu was right about one thing, Obito did know how the world worked. Asking nicely wasn't going to get him released. Running wasn't going to get him out. His only lifeline was in a little piece of wisdom Minato-sensei had shared with him one day, that the more restrictions you put on a ninja performing a mission, the less effective they could be. Zetsu seemed to want him long-term. Zetsu wanted an agent. A right hand. And agents need freedom to be creative. Which meant that if Obito wanted freedom, you can stop anyone else ending up like Rin? He asked, not having to fake the tremor in his voice. If you do this, my good friend. Zetsu smirked. Nobody will ever have to suffer again. I said those same words to an ancestor of yours, a long time ago. Obito grimaced. Accepted the fact that he might not be able to be himself for a very long time. Then controlled his expression and turned around. I'm listening. What do you mean become a god? Present day this becoming a god thing was fucking bullshit. Obito wasn't even dead, he had taken a giant fuck-off laser bolt to the chest, and even though the entire bottom half of his body was gone, it was already growing back. Sasuke! Naruto shouted, stretching out chakra chains from his arms. Get him! Right! Sasuke released his Susanoo and dropped forwards, as the chains wrapped around Obito and covered him almost completely in golden light, leaving only his stomach bare. Hey Samahata! You said you cut up the 10 tails once, right? Damn right. Wanna see me do it again? Sasuke stretched out and punched one fist through Obito's body. There was the signature rustling noise, and suddenly his hand wasn't just touching the Jinchuriki's gross insides. He could feel the chakra, not just see it. Feel the massive, pulsating ball of energy centered in Obito's gut. It was powerful and unbalanced and deadly, and oh, that was interesting. He could feel the pieces. Kurama he isolated first, he'd spent long enough with Naruto to recognize it. Then Shikaku, who he'd seen inside Gaara on plenty of occasions, and Gyuki, from his brief time with Killer Bee. With those parts separated, it was easier to see the seams where all the other beasts were sewn together. They had been independent for centuries now, they didn't want to be combined again. All it would take to separate them was one solid tug. So Sasuke dug his nails in and tugged. The resulting snap caused an explosion that was almost enough to throw him off Obito entirely, and his arm whipped backwards as a torrent of energy came pouring out of the man's stomach. Red, blue, yellow, green, gold, colors all rapidly splitting off pure monochrome and resolving into shapes in the nearby landscape. It looked like a supersized Pokemon team being released from their balls, to be honest. Kurama! Naruto shouted, releasing his control over the chains and jumping to intercept the largest of the energy streams. It took him in the stomach, but rather than hurting him, it suffused him a great golden glow as his present cloak intensified in luminosity. Sasuke was left essentially riding Obito, which was when he remembered that they no longer had the ability to fly. Oh for fucks was all he was able to say, before they both crashed into the wreckage of the battlefield. Around them, the Bijou were flexing their new physical forms and roaring in defiance, while also yelling a wide variety of taunts, exultations, and expletives. The only one missing from the group was the Nine Tails, the reason for which became obvious when Naruto dropped down next to Sasuke, grinning from ear to ear. Oh, Kami, this feels so much better. He sighed, holding up his arms in front of his face and staring at them. I never even realized how wrong it was to only have half of him. Now everything's balanced. Finally. Glad to hear it. Sasuke groaned, in pain. We don't all get fun victory power-ups. Some of us just hurt. Oh, quit being a bitch. Naruto rolled his eyes and shoved his best friend in the shoulder, simultaneously refilling his chakra and stimulating his healing. Then they both stopped and looked down. What was left of Obito Uchiha, which was far more of him than they had expected there to be, coughed and looked up at them with one Rinnegan and one Mangekyo Sharingan. What in the he looked down at himself. Looked back up. Oh, motherfucker, 2 sets of footsteps echoed down the long corridors within the moon's surface. Toneri had increased his pace to a flat-out run, and was now puffing, we aren't all trained superhuman martial artists, okay? Without the magic eyes, I'm really rather ordinary, and Hinata had long since scooped up Hanabi in a bridal carry to stop her slowing them down. Hanabi would have been enjoying the ride, but she could read the mood. Everyone was tense and focused and just a little bit terrified. Where exactly are we going? Hinata called forwards. To the heart of the moon. Tonari shouted back. We, are just about here. They came upon a very large, ornate-looking stone door. Tonari walked up and touched one palm to it, causing a green glow to spread across its surface. And this is meant to help me fight a god, how? Hinata asked, setting Hanabi down as the door began to creak open. Well. Panting, Tonari had the gall to look smug. You told me we needed a Tensigen, didn't you? The hallway was flooded by light from beyond the door, and Hinata's jaw dropped. Floating in the chamber ahead of them was a gigantic aquamarine orb. It was crystalline yet smooth, glowing green, blue, orange and golden all at once, and Hinata could feel her chakra flare up simply from being near it. Oh. Was all she could think to say. So that's why my Byakugan doesn't work properly here. She glanced downwards, and saw that her sister had tears in her eyes. Hanabi? Are you okay? Yeah. Hanabi sniffled, wiping her eyes. I'm really thankful I got my sight back for this. And then Hinata was trying very hard not to cry as well. We aren't sure if it's actually one of Hamura's Tensigen, or if it's simply something he used them to create. Tonari offered a welcome distraction. This is what's been powering the moon for generations. Sadly, its power isn't infinite. As I've told you before, generation after generation have sacrificed their own eyes to the Tensigen to keep it running. He touched his own blindfold. That orb contains the dojutsu of every Otsutsuki to ever live on the moon, generating power. I thought that, since combining my chakra with your eyes would grant me the Tensigen, we could use this to do something similar for you. He smiled wryly. Crude logic, I know, but we live in a world where you can just pop out eyeballs and pass them around, and they work just fine. Giving me the Tensigen and having you control me sounds a lot more complicated than just giving them to you. Hinata walked up and touched the orb's surface, feeling the flickers of energy that only hinted at a greater power deeper within. You think that'll work? The alternative is you drain my chakra until I die, or blind Hanabi. Tonari shrugged. Again, I have no idea. But it's worth a shot. Hinata looked back, gesturing vaguely to their surroundings. And what happens to all this if it's gone? Tonari's face fell. The Tensigen is the only thing keeping the moon habitable. He confessed. The puppets will stop working immediately. After a month or so the artificial gravity will fail, then the atmosphere will vent into space, and the temperature will drop to about 25 degrees above absolute zero. That Fahrenheit? Hinata asked. No, Kelvin, I'm not a heathen. Tonari wrinkled his nose up, then sighed. The ecosystem and structures will all collapse. The moon will become a barren husk again. Right. Hinata was stone-faced. I understand if you don't know, it's fine. He shook his head resolutely. My people's legacy is one of misunderstanding and murder. I think it is high time I left that behind and started anew. Don't worry, me and Hanabi will be perfectly safe here for more than long enough for the war to conclude. Whatever that may mean. Hinata paused, then nodded and turned back to the orb. All right, great-granddad. She muttered, reaching out again. Let's see what you've got for me. Her hand lit up, with lion fist purple flames. Then she touched it to the surface and declared Hirajikoma. And then she set on fire. The rest of the Konoha ninja all gathered around Obito, who, despite interference from Naruto, was dying by the moment. Loss of a bijou is a death sentence for any Jinchuriki, never mind that of the 10 tails. Well now what? Kakashi growled. We're back where we started. Better. Naruto pointed out. I got the full Kyuubi now. Worse. Obito corrected, coughing. He weakly pointed into the middle distance. There, the sounds of titanic conflict had stopped. Most worryingly, it was a giant blue Susanoo that was the last to flicker out. He's not busy anymore. I know the Reaper Death Seal. Tobirama offered. If we weaken Madara, I might be able to put him away. Weaken him how? Hiruzen asked. He can't tire, run out of chakra, or take permanent damage. If we can destroy him, I can tie him up with the chakra chains? Naruto suggested. That'll stop him regenerating, at least for a while. But he can counter it with the Rinnegan abilities if we can't get to his head. Minato reminded him. And he has those wood clones, so as long as they're around they can break him out. Well, it's not like we can ask him politely to turn off all his powers. Tsunade exclaimed. No, said Obito, quietly. But we can make him lose them. Everyone looked down at him. Come again? Asked Sasuke. I'm no longer the Ten Tails, but I still have the Rinnegan. The dying Uchiha rasped. I can't use the Rinne Tensei to bring back all your allies. But I can manage one person. I can bring back Madara. Naruto looked at him like he'd grown an extra head. Bring him back? Why would we want to do that? But more than one of them had realized what Obito meant. His Rinnegan aren't real. Jiraiya remembered. Most of his powers are enhancements from Kabuto. Sasuke nodded. If we bring him fully to life, we take those away. If I bring him back, he'll be blind. Obito explained. No Rinnegan, no absorbing the Bijou. No Mangekyo Sharingan, no Susanoo. No wood style. He'll be mortal, with finite chakra, and no way to regenerate. You'll be able to kill him with as little as a kunai if you can get close enough. He'll still be one of the deadliest ninja in history, but it'll be the best chance we're ever going to get. Tobirama agreed. And we'll have to protect Obito. Kakashi spoke up. Madara will be after his eye the moment he realizes what's happened. Obito, where's the second? Obito grinned. Safe. I got a loan, buried it, and then Jinjutsu'd myself to forget its location. Get the Hyuga girl to find it if you have to, but it's out of his reach. Then we have a plan. Naruto took charge, looking up to the 8 titans surrounding them that had, so far, been very kindly sitting still. Bijou. Reanimated Kage. Sasuke. You're with me. We're gonna go take out this bastard. He looked back down. Guy, Tsunade, Jiraiya, help the rest of the alliance with the Buddha, since they're apparently still not done. A roar and an explosion from that direction punctuated his point. When Madara's chakra reserves are limited, as much as I hate to say it, throwing an army of minions at him might actually work. Kakashi, he turned to his sensei, not looking happy about what he was going to say. If it looks like Madara's about to get through? Warp Obito into the Kamui dimension and take a kunai to your own eye. We need to keep it away from him. Kakashi's face was cold. Too risky to wait. I'll do it the moment the technique goes through. I've been borrowing this eye for long enough. Obito chuckled. So the last thing I see as I die is his ugly mug? Fair. He put his hands together. You have 10 seconds before he's mortal on my mark. Get moving. 10. Everyone scattered, and Kakashi took up position behind Obito and facing Madara, as Obito started to count down. It was a really, really good plan. Here's how it went wrong. Hashirama Senju knelt in the rubble. Surrounding him was an wasteland of dying wooden structures, pulverized stone, and fire. His body was punctured in a dozen or more places by Rinnegan rods, disrupting his chakra and preventing him from moving. Walking up to his rival, Madara Uchiha threw a couple more into him for good measure. Hashirama coughed. I'd make penetrate me jokes, but I've already established you've lost those privileges. Oh, don't ruin the mood. Madara sighed. That was the only proper fight I've had all war. I enjoyed it. Possibly the last proper fight I'll ever have. Oh, you think that was a proper fight? Hashirama grinned. I've only used 10% of my power HAAH. He strained against his restraints for a second or so, then went limp again. Wow. Madara said, flatly. That was pathetic. It was a bit. Can I try again? You know I'm trying to give you a dramatic death here and you're just ruining it. Completely. A dramatic death? Hashirama snorted. I already got one of those. Remember when I kicked your ass and then beat up the Nine Tails? I do. Madara spread his arms. Yet things are different now, aren't they? I dunno. Hashirama looked around. You ever get that feeling of déjà vu? Madara shrugged. Well, I'd hoped you'd learned from last time, but no. I beat you in pretty much the same way, except I had the Rinnegan instead of the Kyuubi. I'm starting to think you just really like having me on my knees. But really, we already knew that. Hashirama grinned. Hey. Hey Madara. Madara scowled. What? That's pretty gay, bro. We've had sex. I had my socks on. That means it wasn't Jean. Madara flung another Rinnegan rod, burying it in his forehead, snarling, Stop acting like a child. Your mom's acting like a child. Hashirama laughed. Madara glowered at him, stalking up and grabbing the rod, wrenching it backwards, and forcing Hashirama's head up. Why, for once in your pathetic existence, can't you just take this seriously? Because that is what you want. Hashirama's grin was feral, his eyes flashing. And I am not going to give it to you. His eyes rolled up, taking in the black rod sticking out of him. Oh hey, look. Now we're both dickheads. Madara reached back with a fist, then spun, and grabbed the katana being swung at the back of his head. That Hashirama grimaced and continued to push the blade, but Madara just grinned, even as it bit deep into his hand. Really? Did you think that I would fall for the same trick twice? The Hashirama he was clashing with grinned right back. No. It said. Then it released the blade entirely, grabbing Madara's arms. Behind them, there was an explosion of force, and Rinnegan rods flew away in all directions. The Hashirama on the ground, chakra pathways disrupted by the rods, had reactivated Sage Mode. He charged forwards, reaching for Madara's exposed back Shinra Tensei. Madara uttered. Both Hashirama were hurled away from him. The katana did too, stabbing into the skull of the one grappling with him and revealing it to be a wood clone. Madara turned and reached backwards and called out Bansho Tenin. And Pincushion Hashirama, the real Hashirama, was yanked right back, his throat slamming into Madara's outstretched hand. Pathetic. Madara smirked, Rinnegan flashing. With a stretch of his will, he began using the Preta path to drain Hashirama's sage chakra away. And oh, so much like you. You cannot achieve your dreams with a witty one-liner and the will of fire. You simply need to have more power. And soon, I will have all of it. The cup you are trying to fill has no bottom. Hashirama warned him, body going limp. Please stop, before it's too late resorting to begging now? Madara sighed. How far beneath you? Not really. The orange markings indicating Sage Mode vanished from around Hashirama's eyes, and he grinned. I was quoting Kung Fu Panda too. Love that movie. Just wish all the fans weren't fucking furries or the fanfiction would be amazing. Madara closed his eyes. Then he used the human path to rip out Hashirama's soul. The Edo Tensei body collapsed to the floor and quickly disintegrated. Madara considered the soul in his hand for a moment, then let it fly off to the Pure Lands. He'd learned everything he needed from it anyway. Yeah, well, you're dead. He muttered to the corpse. So, He turned away, looking back to the main battlefield, and was met with the sight of an army charging towards him. The bijou were sort of difficult to miss. Oh, good, you all dealt with the Beto. He said, mostly to himself, but knowing that the two boys in the lead, it's the Uzumaki and the Uchiha. How on earth are they working together so well? I was rather worried I'd have to do it myself. Hit him, boys! Naruto shouted, and all the tailed beasts began charging up attacks. So did he, Madara noted, a golden avatar flashing into existence around him and purple energy charging in its mouth. Brotherhood Bijou Bomb Barrage! The kid shouted, as 9 powerful blasts rocketed forwards. Well, he certainly inherited the Konoha style. Madara rolled his eyes, and powered up his Susanoo. That was when his body flashed white. There was, admittedly, a brief moment of panic as his eyes disintegrated in their sockets, his defensive shield broke into pieces, and he was left with the nothing but the roaring sound of giant deathballs flying towards him. He took the first real breath of fresh air he had in centuries. Then he grinned. This is where the fun begins. Zetsu? 50 meters to your left. Understood. Quintuple Rashomon. He slammed his palms onto the floor, and 5 massive locked gates rose up from the ground in front of him. The approaching attack obliterated the first 4, but the last held. Rubble rained down around Madara, and a certain rock with a seal on it was impossible to differentiate from the others by sound alone. Tobirama Senju was similarly silent when he appeared there and stabbed his katana towards Madara's back. Madara spun, catching the blade and shattering it with a palm strike, before kicking out at Tobirama, who vanished again with a shocked look. Madara flung the remnants of the blade at the location he reappeared, spun again to catch the knife thrown by a blonde Edo in Hokage vestments. Said Hokage appeared at the knife's location, but Madara was ready, punching towards his head. He dodged. Oh, he's faster than Tobirama, that must be causing tension, head tilting just to the side of Madara's fist. The attack landed anyway, and blew off the side of his head. Dad! Shouted Naruto, charging in from behind alongside Sasuke. Madara turned to face them, and heard them gasp as they saw the orange markings on his face. Sage mode? Naruto exclaimed, at the same time Sasuke shouted bullshit. 5 meters forwards. Plan 7A, Madara answered, walking towards them. Absorb Hashirama's Sage mode, combine it with my other powers, and use it to kill Obito once he was done with you all. Plan 7B, if you win, kill you all. Plan 7C, if you win and Obito is smart enough to try and bring me back, use Sage mode to survive until I get his Rinnegan. You planned for this? Sasuke gaped. No, my original plan was much simpler. Madara admitted, stopping. This is what I call preemptive improvisation. Well, Obito's Rinnegan is already gone. Naruto shouted, petulantly. So all we have to do is wear out your reserves. First, no it isn't. Madara replied. And second, how do you know that's the one I was talking about? Right underneath you. Black Zetsu whispered into his ear, invisible in his shadow. Now excuse me briefly. Zetsu vanished, and Madara punched the floor. They were stood on stone, but the roots of Hashirama's would release structures ran deep. Directly beneath Madara, the rock quickly gave way to plant matter. Plant matter, which white Zetsu were capable of moving through. White Zetsu, some of which Black Zetsu had appropriated for personal tasks at the start of the war. Black Zetsu, who had always made sure to leave certain telltale signs of his presence when he was piggybacking on Obito's shadow. This was so that when it was necessary, he could stop those signs and follow with Obito thinking he wasn't there. Obito, who had hidden one of the Rinnegan. A white hand stretched up out of the wood, a purple orb covered in concentric circles, clutched in its palm. No! Naruto shouted, hurling a Raisin Shuriken, and Madara batted it away with one hand, using Hashirama's frog kata to deflect an indirect collision, reaching down with his other hand to snatch up the eye. He booted away a reappearing Tobirama, blocked a flurry of attacks from Sasuke with the Rinnegan hand, used the other to spew a massive wave of fire to counter a matched attack from Hiruzen, reached up to his eye socket, stopped, annoyed as he had to catch a punch from Naruto that would have taken off his head, flung the boy away, jumped over a string of Magatama beads that swung where his torso had been, axe kicked a reappearing Minato down into those beads, causing a chain reaction of Explosions that forced everyone else to give him space, flashed through a set of hand seals with his offhand, reached up again with the Rinnegan, was stopped again by golden chains wrapping around the arm, so he severed those, but was wrapped by a dozen others as a set of shadow clones joined the effort, flexed free, winced as black fire exploded against his back, only failing to kill him because of the Senjutsu cloak. Then he countered a taijutsu attack from Hiruzen and Tobirama with just one leg while blasting a lightning spear that Sasuke was barely able to catch and ground without it vaporizing him, reached up again with the Rinnegan but this time was stopped by bloody ninja wire of all things, chakra enhanced, so he channeled lightning chakra through that and Sasuke screamed and let go, then deflected another Raisin Shuriken, but by that point Hiruzen had caught his attacking leg and Tobirama had swept at his balancing one with a katana, forcing him to release the floor to avoid losing it, at which point more adamantine chains grabbed him and forced him to the ground, and he slammed his palm down and declared Swamp of the Underworld, which caused the earth beneath them to ripple and shift. All the other fighters found themselves being sucked downwards into the swamp, Minato and Tobirama having to use flying Raijin to get away, which left them too far to interfere. Except for Naruto. That genuinely impressive young man was using his own competence with Senjutsu to stay on his feet on the swamp surface. Now! Naruto shouted to the 8 other tailed beasts on the outskirts of the battle, who all charged Bijou bombs again, as golden chains lashed out and pinned Madara down in his own muck, hands forced out to either side. Madara was completely helpless. But he was capable of calmly saying, "Look up." Naruto did. And then he swore. Meteorite. The 8 Bijou all looked up, and, probably at the urging of Kurama, fired their attacks in unison at the giant falling planetoid Madara had summoned right after temporarily destroying Minato. They intercepted it less than a second before it would have landed, the combined energy of the cooperating beasts more than enough to make it blast into millions of pieces, in what was probably now the second most impressive explosion of the war so far. But the attack that they had aimed at the meteorite hadn't been aimed at Madara. And while they were distracted, he had freed himself from the chakra chains. Sasuke, rapidly sinking, called out a warning, and Naruto flung one last Raisin Shuriken, but it was too little too late. Shinra Tensei. Naruto's attack fell apart in midair, coming into contact with an invisible counterforce and vanishing. Madara stood behind it, smiling, with one eye closed and the other a dark purple. "One to go," he said, absently. Then slammed one palm to the floor. Summoning Jutsu Gedomazo. Obito sagged to his knees, coughing out blood. His hair, already bleached white from his time as the Jubi host, was starting to fall out in clumps. He shook in place there for a full second, too, before turning around and wheezing Kakashi. "Do it now." I can't." Kakashi protested. "What gag?" Obito spasmed, at what he was pretty sure was his stomach lining disintegrating. "What do you mean you'd see?" He turned, and gasped. Kakashi's body was splayed out, knees bent, arms stretching to the side at inhuman-looking angles. His neck was thrown back, face staring up at the moon, and his muscles were shaking in strain. He had no shadow. At least, not on the floor below him. Instead it stretched up, wrapping around his body. "Zetsu." Obito breathed. "Oh, my dear Obito, when are you going to get the message?" Black Zetsu's face covered half of Kakashi's, and was drawn into its ever-present grin. "I'm always the one in control." A few hours ago. When Madara Uchiha was resurrected by the Edo Tensei, he did not say the fuck? Because, for quite possibly the first time in history, he had been expecting to come back from the dead. And then actually had. He did, however, take one look at himself and calmly utter what? "Good morning," Black Zetsu whispered into his ear. Or rather, evening. "Why have I not been resurrected with the Rinne Tensei?" he demanded, immediately. "Okay, look, we're 1, maybe 2 centuries in the future," Zetsu told him. "Plans have gotten highly complicated. Simplify them." "All right, calm down," Zetsu sighed. "The Rinnegan are in the hands of a boy called Obito Uchiha, or rather one's in his head and the other he hid for safekeeping. I've since snatched it. He's with us, and if he ever starts disobeying I have a seal on his heart we can both use to control him." "The Bijou?" The first 7 are in the Gedomazo, 8 and 9 are still loose. That Jinchuriki sealing that was in the works when you died has since become the standard method of bijou containment, we're after a cloud ninja called Killer Bee and a leaf kid called Naruto Uzumaki. Uzumaki? Madara confirmed, eyes narrowing. Indeed. He's the QB host, and he took out the last person I put the Rinnegan in. He's the one to look out for. You're after an obnoxious blonde teenager who's oddly reminiscent of your buddy Hashirama. Madara finally looked up, which was when he noticed the massive army in front of him. His eyes zeroed in onto an obnoxiously blonde mop of hair. Ah. Found him. So do I have to find my summoner and force him to release me? Hopefully, our enemies will take care of that themselves. Zetsu answered, with the mental equivalent of a shrug. Kabuto is willing to just let you do your own thing for now so long as you keep tearing into his enemies, who conveniently enough are our enemies. Madara stretched out his arms, getting used to this neutered body. So what's the plan? There isn't one. Obito intends to gather all the bijou and then bring you back properly, but in the distance, a giant planetoid formed, not too far from the pair of giant owls. We're in a war. Things are somewhat hectic. Improvisation then? Wonderful. Madara jumped down from the cliff he was stood on, and started running towards the army. Now then, let's test what Tobirama's clever little necromancy can do. Present day, if Hinata could, she would have screamed. Her body was locked, frozen, in the exact position she'd been in when she'd first touched the Tensiken. But that had been long seconds ago, and the entire time her body had been burning. Foreign chakra roared through her, in and out again, tearing at her tenketsu as it went and frying her internal pathways. Chakra was running through the giant orb in constant motion, she realized, and her actions had unwittingly made her a part of the circuit. Apparently the Tensiken could go decades before requiring repairs in the form of a new Byakugan, but Hinata didn't think her body could handle more than another minute or so of the blistering agony before it crumbled into dust. Blue fire was literally rippling across the surface of her body, and she was unable to answer Tonari's increasingly worried questions about if that was supposed to be happening or not due to her newfound paralysis. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. Quick thought, maybe we should have actually consulted some more with the expert before plugging ourselves into the core of the entire celestial body. You absolutely should have, but I suppose we have time to do it now, said a voice from her left that was definitely not Tonari's. She couldn't move her eyes, and her Byakugan wasn't telling her anything, so the source of the words helpfully walked into her field of view. Focus, Hinata. Hamura Otsutsuki was looking much more serious than he had the last time she had seen him. Your life is on the line here. Do I not look focused? She thought at the apparition, angrily. Don't focus on the pain. Focus on the chakra. He put his palm on the surface, and annoyingly didn't also start burning. Instead, the outer surface of the orb seemed to vanish, revealing the swirling insides to her, and, she suspected, only to her. Look at it. Feel it. What is it? She tried, attempting to toss aside the pain and think. It wasn't normal, she knew that much. She knew because all the chakra in her body had been ripped straight out of her. If it was the same as that of Tonari's combat cloak, that had counteracted any ninjutsu she had thrown at it, then adamantine? She thought. Close. He raised a hand, and 4 swirls appeared above it, orbiting each other. Black, white, gold-green, and purple-blue. Voracious, obdurate, adamantine, audacious. He said, each color flashing in turn. For very special chakra types, separate from the 5 elemental natures, yin and yang. Unavailable through normal ninshu, only found in those of my and my brother's bloodline. The adamantine you recognize as making up the Uzumaki chains, that suppressed chakra. Voracious is responsible for your teammate's Amaterasu when combined with fire, it consumes chakra to burn stronger. The chakra-draining properties of your Lion Fist's technique is audacious, while obdurate is found in your Vishnu transformation and Kesho Deketsu, which chakra slides off like oil on water. Is now really the time? Hinata demanded. She could feel her skin starting to flake. Of course it is. I haven't been able to lecture anyone in years. Hamura clenched his fist, and the four swirls combined together to form one white-blue glow. What you call yin-yang release is the purest form of ninjutsu chakra, a combination of all ordinary natures. This Tensigen, and the power it utilizes, is made of what I call counter chakra. A combination of all four subtypes. Because of course, when Hagoromo and I began to master our mother's power, we did so in completely different ways, and of course his way was the one he granted to the whole world regardless, that is the chakra flowing through you now, and it will kill you if you let it. Then how do I stop it? She asked, desperate. Control it. He told her, simply. You are my heir, and your body is now adapting to match that of your cousins on the moon, unlocking your true potential. It recognizes the chakra flowing through you as such a counterintuitive type, and it will awaken the Tensigen to control and produce it. Unfortunately, that will only happen after you have stabilized yourself, leaving you with the unenviable task of pulling it off without the requisite organs. Recall when you attempted to wield your Gokiai abilities without an additional pair of eyes to regulate them? This system is designed terribly. Incorrect, there's no system at all. None of this is how the Otsutsuki do it, and even that's not the way the universe is supposed to work. We're channeling godlike power through mortal forms, flying by the seat of our pants, and only surviving because we're too determined to let it kill us. Because that, Hinata, is what humans do. He walked closer to her. You must direct the chakra around yourself, rather than through you. Create a lattice, a cage, a field through which you may influence it at will. Like what this Tensigen does. He pointed to it. I imagine you're quite intimate with its workings by now. Annoyingly, she was. As a side effect of her body freezing in place, the Hiragikoma was still on. Even as the gigantic contraption poured energy through her, she was understanding it better than she'd ever understood anything in her life. But how do I make my body do? She shoved her conception of its workings to the forefront of her mind. That. Hamura smiled. The Hyuuga are known for 3 things, no? He told her. Their Byakugan, their ability to drain chakra, and their ability to project chakra out of every tenketsu in their body. What do you think the original heavenly spin kata was supposed to do? But I don't have any chakra. This thing's already destroyed it all. Oh. Hamura shrugged. Well, sucks to be you. The apparition vanished. Son of a titch. Alright, chakra, ordinary ninjutsu chakra, where could she get some of that? 2 nearby sources immediately drew her attention. Hinata heaved, but her body didn't budge. Heaved again, to no effect. The Tensigen chakra had chosen its path and was sticking to it. Moving was like trying to pull apart magnets. Except way harder than trying to pull apart magnets. Metaphors are hard when you're suffering. Oh, fuck it, time for some more self-destructive behavior. First gate, her body flashed with pressure. Flashed again, started shaking, then again, and her skin was red, stone cracking beneath her feet, and her 2 witnesses had moved away from her, which was the exact opposite of what she wanted. Then she flashed again, and fingers clenched on the hand that wasn't touching the orb. Sweat forming and evaporating on her skin, she was able to slowly drag that arm out behind herself, holding it out palm up, fingers spread. She still couldn't speak, only rely on the simplest possible expression of invitation she could manage. Darkness flickered at the edge of her vision, unconsciousness promising death, but she clung to the waking world, internally begging. Come on, you heartless, pointless fucking universe. You've spent the last half a decade trying to teach me I can rely on others. Don't you dare hold out on me now. Her Byakugan showed her every micro-expression on her audience's face. As Neji Hyuuga looked up at Tonari, back at her, gulped, and took a tentative step forwards. Hanabi! Don't! Tonari shouted, but Hanabi didn't stop. Hesitantly, she reached out, and took Hinata's hand. The Tensigen was fast, trying to reach out and rope Hanabi into the circuit as well, but Hinata was faster. A lion fist blasted to life in her hand, and Hanabi screamed in shock at the brief burn, but by then Hinata had begun pulling chakra right out of her sister's body. Her tenketsu blasted back to life and she gasped, then immediately started firing every single one of them, pouring the chakra out of her body in a pattern she was making up on the spot and was only like 72% sure would work. The white-blue flames running across her body flickered, then moved outwards, hovering on a field of energy just above her skin while not actually touching it. Hinata sighed as her body was freed, but kept her hand on the orb, because she could feel her eyes mutating even as she stood there and she wasn't a fucking quitter. But she didn't think she'd have enough time. She was quickly running through her sister's minuscule, untrained chakra reserves. "Hanabi!" she shouted, mouth finally free. "Get back!" "I can't." There was another burst of power. Hinata's words stuck in her mouth as chakra flooded into her, more chakra than Hanabi had, in fact, more chakra than she had. She looked up, and grinned. Tonari was holding onto Hanabi's other hand. Next time, he grimaced, glowing green as he channeled energy into Hanabi, and from there into her. "Tell us your crazy plans before you start them." "I'll keep that in mind." She laughed. Fully recharged, she released Hanabi, and turned back to the Tensigen. Her chakra cloak was stabilizing, and she realized now why Tonari's had broken immediately after one hit. Since the counter chakra was swirling around her rather than coming out from within, one disruption would shatter the whole system. But that also made it efficient. Once it was built up properly, grinning more than a little insanely, she brought her other hand around and slammed it too into the surface of the Tensigen, doubling her points of contact and increasing the number of loops on her chakra cloak, drawing more and more burden of the power away from the artifact and onto herself. "Did you think I was joking, Gramps?" she shouted. "Gimme everything you've got." As the Tensigen dimmed, and she became the brightest light source in the room, Hinata's white eyes began to glow blue. Konoha had an unofficial yet quite well-known panic rating system. It was usually used while telling funny stories of past exploits, to explain just how terrified a ninja was feeling at any particular moment in said story. The accepted definition of the 0-10 scale was that 0 was no panic, 5 was, amusingly, hidden waterfall has challenged the Hokage to a duel, and 5 was something lucky has just happened to Tsunade Senju. Naruto Uzumaki is feeling bored was usually about a 10 for the village as a whole, and a hypothetical 20 was defined as Madara Uchiha has come back to seek revenge on Konoha. Naruto took a brief moment to wonder what the number was for Madara Uchiha has come back, and now he has a fucking Rinnegan, but was kinda thinking high. Really, really bloody high. Hiruzen Sarutobi rocketed down from above, blasting an enormous fire dragon ahead of him, but Madara just extended a hand. He caught the jutsu, absorbing it with the Predapath, then grabbed Hiruzen by the throat before he could react and tugged. The old Hokage's soul was ripped out of him and discarded, and the body crumpled. The professor, one of their greatest assets, was dead before anyone had the chance to do anything about it. "Old man!" Naruto shouted, but was quickly preoccupied by the fact that the Gedo Mazo had fully reappeared. Looking no worse for wear after its brief existence as the 10 Tails, the statue roared and swept its arms to either side, knocking away Sasuke and Tobirama as they moved to stop it and vomiting purple chains out of its mouth. The Bijou were still recovering from their last Bijou bomb barrage. They didn't stand a chance. 8 beasts were grappled by the purple energy, bellowing in fear and rage, being pulled back into the mouth of the statue. Then they all stopped. Madara looked up, annoyed, and tossed a struggling Sasuke away, muttering to himself, "If it's not one Ashura, it's another." For the love of Naruto, grit his teeth, and kept his hands in the shadow clone position, as his Kyuubi avatar burned bright around him. 8 of the 9 tails stretched outwards, wrapping around each of the Bijou from behind. His feet dug into the floor, and a few chakra hands extended into the ground around him for extra traction, and he absolutely was not letting go. "They're people, you insensitive dickwad!" He shouted down at the man responsible for all of this crap. "Leave them the hell alone!" Ahead of him, a storm of shadow clones charged Madara. The Uchiha dealt with the first few with some effortless taijutsu, blasted a dozen more away with Shinra Tensei, then realized that was pointless and stretched his arms out to either side. The Azura path activated and red lasers blasted out from each hand, which he swung in a circle to disintegrate every clone practically at once. He focused it at Naruto, couldn't break the Kyuubi avatar, and then was forced to dive forwards as the 9th tail of the cloak hurled a Bijou bomb at him. "Just hold on for a little longer." Kurama shouted, in Naruto's head. My siblings, they're sharing their chakra with us. A few more seconds, and I'll be able to do something real special. Got it. Naruto shouted aloud. Ahead of him, Madara punched straight through the avatar and walked inside, and Naruto fell into a taijutsu stance. Behind him, the two clones' heated gathering sage chakra popped, and orange highlights flashed into existence around his eyes. All right, asshole. He said, eyes narrowed, mentally reviewing everything he knew Madara could do in preparation for the fight of his life. Buckle up, because nobody's ever had to fight this before. Buffed to an unbelievable degree beyond his base from by the Kyuubi's power, his own, and his sage mode, all working perfectly in tandem, he took a step forwards, and his throat was slit. Naruto gargled and his eyes widened. Madara was still approaching, he hadn't done anything. But nonetheless, something stabbed deep into his gut, dragged upwards through his chest, pulled out, and then buried itself in his heart. What? He staggered backwards, blood coating the ground beneath him as his body desperately tried to heal the gaping holes in his torso, and Madara helpfully moved up to him and steadied him with one hand. I'm going to be honest, admitted the Uchiha. Even I didn't know I could do that until just now. What should I call it? Naruto tried to say let me go, but was only able to make a noise sort of like oh, what was that? Limbo? Madara frowned thoughtfully. Not bad. Something to remember you by, little nuisance. Then he summoned a Rinnegan rod in one hand, and stabbed it into Naruto's heart. No, Naruto thought, no, the Kyuubi shouted no. Sasuke screamed, and then Madara tore Kurama right out of Naruto. And this time, it was the whole Kurama. For a tiny, brief moment, for the first time in 16 years, with nothing but little shards of each of the bija floating around, Naruto Uzumaki was completely alone in his own head. Then everything went black. Tonari and Hanabi had to shield their eyes from the light, it was so overwhelming. A bright white glow that just got brighter, brighter, brighter then, with a final peak, dropped back down to an ordinary level. Tonari's puppet dropped lifelessly to the floor as Hanabi squinted and reopened her eyes. Hinata was still maintaining a respectable outline of blue fire. Her hair had gone white, falling outwards more than downwards. Most interestingly, however, was that she was hovering a few inches above the floor. It took her a moment to notice that last fact, turning her head down and murmuring huh, before curling up and rolling in midair. Then she turned around to look at them. Hanabi gasped. Hinata. Your eyes. You have pupils. I do? Hinata asked. She waved a hand through the air and conjured a small sheet of opal, which floated in the air in front of her, allowing her to take in her reflection. Oh, I do, she said, upon seeing it. She reached up with one hand to pull open one eye, taking in the shimmering blue of the Tenseigan. Wow, that's crazy. I mean, we've technically always had them, but they were just the same color as the rest of the eye, and shit, right, no, focusing. She looked past Hanabi. Tonari? Thanks. Just doing what I have to do. He nodded. She went at him, and he winced. Okay, so actually yet these last few days have been absolute hell for me, and I'm glad you're acknowledging that. No, I understand. Hinata looked behind herself, and floated out into the center of the room, where there was a small collection of lights still floating. She glanced across the few hundred Byakugan, still glowing with the residual light of the Tenseigan. The legacy of a whole people making sacrifices to make things better is all well and good. She acknowledged, aloud. It's honorable. Heroic, even. But if it's just a temporary solution, if all you're buying is some peace of mind, it's far too easy to get into that cycle of hitting the snooze button over and over again, even as everything gets worse. And eventually, you're going to have to bite the bullet. She sighed, and then stretched out a hand. Two of the Byakugan floated away from the rest and began to circle each other above her palm, as she flew back down to the other two. What I'm saying is, what Itachi and Neji did was a very respectable sacrifice. But I wish they'd just bloody assassinated Danzo at the start. Keep that in mind moving forwards, Tonari. She held up the Byakugan. Here. I can't see whatever you're holding. He deadpanned. I know. But this might change that. She pulled his hand out and dropped the eyes into it. His breath hitched. Are those yours? She nodded, smiling, and tapped the side of her head. It's not hard to find the ones that match your chakra with my eyes. Use them to keep the scary things away from my sister, you understand? I thank you. Thank you so much. Tonari looked on the verge of a breakdown, so she decided it was time to leave while he still had a shred of dignity left. Right, so. Warfare. The portal back is, she thought about it, then shook her head. Nah, fuck it. This time I will just fly down. She flexed her will, and a pair of wings over 10 meters in span sprung out of her back. She looked up and took a deep breath. Her feet touched the floor. Then she took off like a rocket, blowing a hole straight through the roof. All Hanabi could see was a white-blue streak of light, blasting up towards a distant planet. The Kurama avatar shattered, and Sasuke Uchiha was screaming. The remaining 8 Bijou were all promptly yanked into the Gedo Mazo to join their elder brother, and it started the process of mutating itself into the 10 tails again. Madara completely ignored it, opting instead to run away from the battle entirely. Sasuke didn't even try to give chase, sliding to a stop next to the body of, "It's not a body, I won't let it become a body," his teammate. Naruto! He cried out, kneeling down, and oh, that's a lot of blood. Naruto, stay with me, Naruto, you stubborn bastard, don't you dare die on me now. But an analysis with the Sharingan just made everything look worse. Naruto had been unseamed and halfway decapitated, and there was a black rod in his heart, which Sasuke immediately yanked out, but that just meant that now there was a hole in his heart, and that wasn't much better. Any one of those things would kill an ordinary ninja, and even with Naruto being Naruto, he might not have been able to survive all 3 at the best of times. But this wasn't the best of times. Kurama's chakra was gone, and with the pair so completely intertwined at that point, Naruto's was gone with it. His Tenketsu were dead. Death from chakra exhaustion in less than a second. His training helpfully informed him, despite the fact that he'd been muttering no, 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 no out loud the entire time. His brain won't even have the chance to run out of oxygen. The brain. Sasuke's one hope. Brief flickers of residual chakra, oddly in 10 different colors, were still floating around in Naruto's brain. Meaning he wasn't dead. Not yet. Sasuke touched a hand to his teammate's forehead, and he focused. Madara had to admit, he was enjoying himself. He knew he shouldn't be, and he most certainly wasn't going to let it get in the way of his success, no hashramang. But he couldn't help it. This was quite possibly going to be his last fight ever. At least he was getting a kick out of it. A storm of kunai flew towards him and he knocked them away with Shinra Tensei, then Minato appeared on one and Madara fired the Azura arm at him, making him vanish again to escape the explosion. A giant water dragon hurtled towards him from his left, and he countered with a fire dragon of his own, resulting in a collision that hurled scalding mist back at him. Tobirama appeared out of the mist, weaving a set of hand seals that Madara had long since memorized. He just sighed and let the jutsu hit him, feeling his entire vision go dark. Sage mode, remember? He said aloud, catching Tobirama's follow-up attack on a black rod. That power does not belong to you. Tobirama snarled at him, still attacking. That statement means literally nothing. Madara grabbed his throat, and he vanished. Troublesome, he idly broke the Jinjutsu that had been blocking his vision, and looked forwards to see the giant Senjutsu Rasengan that Minato, who had finally taken the time to enter Sage Mode, was plowing down towards him. Oh, come on. Really? He reached up to catch it with the Predapath and it vanished, teleporting seamlessly from Minato's hand to Tobirama's, coming up behind him. Well, that's a little better. He considered his options, then just used Limbo. Tobirama gasped as a Rinnegan rod was driven up through his elbow by no discernible source, yanking the arm around and forcing his Rasengan to crash into the dirt. Madara called out Bansho Tenin and both Tobirama and Minato flew in towards him. both prepared to use the flying Raijin to escape again Shinra Tensei. Madara summoned up 2 more Rinnegan rods in his arms and blasted them outwards with the universal push. The projectiles impaled the attacking Kage in the heads, causing both to drop to the floor and disrupting their chakra so as to make further teleportation impossible. Madara didn't even bother to finish them with the human path, just hurled another dozen or so rods into them to hold them in place. Then, as an afterthought, called out Chibaku Tensei at them, causing a very small planetoid to form around the, already mostly destroyed, zombies, in case they did manage to get out. He hadn't stopped running the entire time. Took you long enough. Black Zetsu pouted at him when he arrived. The person he was latched onto, Madara had no idea who it was, renewed its struggles with even more vigor. I can't hold an unwilling body forever, you know. Damn you. The ninja swore. At this point, I'm not really sure why you felt the need to restrain him, but I also don't really care. Madara made a beckoning gesture. Zetsu detached himself from the ninja, and before he could react, Madara punched him in the stomach so hard he flew almost 100 meters away, leaving Madara with his real target. Fuck you. Spat out Obito Uchiha, who was practically dead by this point. Fine. Madara didn't even bother verbally sparring with the traitor, just reaching down past his non-existent attempts at resistance and grabbing his skull. A small tug was all it took to get the second Rinnegan out of his head. Obito couldn't even use any ninjutsu in his own defense, which was the only reason Madara hadn't taken the split second that it would have taken to kill him properly. His head hit the dirt, the last of his resistance crumbling. Madara did briefly pause before inserting the second Rinnegan, to look up at the white-haired ninja, who was, rather impressively, managing to stand up. Kakashi. Zetsu informed him. Watch out, he has one of Obito's eyes, so he might be able to warp you to another dimension. Does he realize that that's hopeless since the Rinnegan allows dimensional travel? I don't think so. Pity. Leave, now. Madara told him. You'll live if you do, I promise you that. Kakashi coughed, staining his mask with blood, and then ripped said mask off, revealing a mouth cut into a grim line. Madara, of course, had no idea why this random man removing his mask would be significant. Those who fail to complete their mission are trash, he uttered, meeting Obito's eye. But those who abandon their teammates are worse than trash. And I'm not abandoning you again. Obito smiled, one last time, before his eyes rolled into the back of his head. Well, all right. Madara shrugged. Limbo. Kamui, there was a slash, and Kakashi's head fell off his shoulders. His body unceremoniously crumpled to the ground. Madara sighed, turned away, and fit the second Rinnegan into his forehead. He immediately noticed the ease of tension caused by possessing the full pair, using only the one eye to perform techniques had felt wrong. And more importantly, more chakra expensive. He looked out, taking a moment to breathe as no further ninja came after him. How long until the Jubi awakens? He asked. Less than 10 seconds. It's faster now we've got the full 9 tails. Oh, well that's practically forever. I'll eliminate some more variables while we're waiting. Where's that Uchiha child? He was almost bothersome. Hashirama's sage mode had ran out by that point, but that was fine, he still had the greatest ojutsu in the world. The battlefield was an absolute mess, a barren and desolate wasteland of cracked dirt and stone and blood. He was fairly certain there had been a forest here at some point, and made a mental note to regrow it after this was all over. At least the sky was still beautiful, a tapestry of bright stars stretching from one horizon to the other, with the moon hanging above it all like the moon. Madara narrowed his eyes. There was a bright blue light on the moon. It was getting bigger. Oh, you're kidding me. Black Zetsu growled. Heads up. Hamura is making his play. Who on earth is? The light flashed down the horizon in an instant. In the distance, the 1,000-armed Buddha went from terrorizing the entire allied shinobi forces to being not alive anymore in about zero time, as a projectile moving at a not insignificant fraction of the speed of light slammed into its head. Madara hadn't seen the lightspeed ramming thing in Star Wars 8, but Hinata had, and yeah, basically that. The Buddha was fucking obliterated, and Hinata landed on the ground next to the white Zetsu possessing Kabuto. It wasn't even necessary to use Hirajikoma at this point. She just took one look with the Tensiken and blasted him with counter chakra, and the Zetsu disintegrated, leaving Yamato to crash onto the ground unconscious. Poor guy. All plot-relevant ninja. She shouted, mostly at Guy, Tsunade, and Jiraiya, all of whom were staring at her glowing, floating form with no small amount of terror. Follow me. We have to regroup, with she froze, as she finally recognized what her Tensiken was telling her, and the last word came out as a whisper. Naruto. Her pace tearing towards him was even faster than it had been flying through space. She dug a furrow into the ground with an arm slowing herself down, chakra cloak vanishing as she dropped to her knees next to Sasuke, eyes wide. What happened? Madara pulled the fox out. Sasuke didn't even look up at her. Tears were running down his face and his body was shaking, and a quick check with the Tensiken showed that his heart rate was exceeding 200 BPM. If he wasn't already having a full-blown panic attack, he was damn well close to one. Now he has the Rinnegan, he has some sort of technique that lets him attack people from a distance, and it's invisible, and I don't know, it's just not important. It was, but she'd deal with it later. She looked down at Naruto. He's still Ollie alive, yeah, no shit, what the fuck do you think I'm sat here for? Sasuke hissed at her. One of his hands was perpetually punching the floor beside him, probably without him even meaning to, but the other was completely still, touching Naruto's forehead. It was suffused with a green glow. I'm sharing my chakra with him. Keeping him alive until fuck if I know what until. Until you both die, I should think. Said a different voice, appearing next to them. His body can't hold on to the chakra you're giving him, you're just running his brain for him until you run out of juice yourself. Something Hinata and I both have fond memories of. She looked up and glared at the pale figure. Orochimaru. Well, it certainly took you long enough. He gestured at the group of figures running up behind him. Haku, Inoki, Mei, Konin, Gaara. All looking like absolute shit, but determined and staring at Naruto's body in various states of outrage. Oh, I'm sorry, Orochimaru sassed, was I being too slow about bringing back some Kage from the brink of death? I don't give a fuck. Hinata shouted, voice cracking. She pointed at Naruto. Fix this. I will. He told her, reaching forward and putting his hands on her shoulders. His eyes were deadly serious. Hinata. I promise you that he will live. But you need to take everyone who can still fight, leave Tsunade here, and stop Madara, because it doesn't matter that your boyfriend is alive if that monster becomes a god. Do you understand me, Hinata? She stared him in the eye. Sucked in a breath. Nodded. That bastard is going to die for this. Everyone, on me. She paused, leaned down to place a kiss on Naruto's cheek, then stood up again and started running towards Madara. Don't you dare fuck this up. Haku bit out, on his way past, and Gaara gave a very impressive glare, but soon it was just Orochimaru, Tsunade, and Sasuke alone with Naruto's body. Oh, fuck, I'm starting to feel weird. Sasuke shuddered. My guts all twisted and my vision swimming. I think my chakra interacting with his, it's doing something. No, you're probably just going into shock. Tsunade advised. Sasuke, let go of him. No! Sasuke shouted at them, clenching his eyes shut. If I let go he dies. Yeah, exactly. Orochimaru said, rolling his eyes. That way we can res him. What the hell are you? Sasuke rounded on them, then realized. Oh. Granny Chio. One's own life reincarnation. Orochimaru nodded. Cheap and nasty resurrection. Requires a relatively intact body, but it works. But we can't do it unless he's properly kicked the bucket. Relax, I told Hinata I was certain of success and she can tell when I'm lying. Then Sasuke's body shuddered again underneath him and he sucked in a breath. Then teach me the hand seals. Don't be a dumbass. Tsunade shook her head. They need you out there. The only reason we're trading lives here is because you two are the only ones who've stood a chance so far. I'll do it. Au contraire, madam. Orochimaru interceded. I will. Roki? She looked at him in shock. But you're scared of death, yes. Terrified. He admitted. But of death in all its forms. The only thing more frightening than the idea of myself dying is the idea of it happening to you or Jiraiya. The Sannin shook his head, with a wry smile. That was the crucial tidbit Danzo made me forget, with his pesky mind control. I will not lose sight of it now. So if you're going to raise a massive hissy fit, then fine, I'll let you do it just to save time, but if not, we can save the heartfelt speeches until after my soul has started leaving my body, alright? Tsunade set her jaw, and didn't say anything. Very well. Orochimaru turned back down to Naruto. Sasuke, take your hands off your unrequited. I'll have him back in but a moment. Sasuke grimaced. All right. He stood properly, and started to taking his hand away. Then his eyes rolled up into the back of his head, and he collapsed unconscious on top of Naruto. Both of their bodies began to glow, Sasuke's purple, Naruto's gold. Orochimaru turned to look at Tsunade. She looked back at him. What? Yeah, but, guy is guy. All right, listen up. Hinata shouted as she ran. You're not here to fight Madara. You're here to try and blow up the 10 tails. Jiraiya laughed. What, you think we can't? He is nothing like Nagato. She interrupted. Get your head out of your pants. This guy just beat up the 4th and 2nd at once without even trying. And then got even stronger than that. Jiraiya shut his mouth. Hinata. Guy shouted from her left. Power scale him for me. She frowned. Her first thought was to tell him don't even think about it, especially after the shit she'd seen from the Madara. But, if there was one person she trusted not to let his ego cloud his judgment, it was Might Guy? Really? Wow, her life was weird. Base speed comparable to the 4th, without Raijin. She told him. Susanoo's over twice as big and powerful as the QB avatar. You already know the Rinnegan powers, and he's a pro with them. How pro? Haku asked. Don't even bother casting anything at him, he'll absorb it. If you let him attack you from range, you're dead. If you get in close and he grapples you, you're dead. If you hesitate, even for a moment, you're dead. Hinata replied, frankly. The Kage, who had already had to fight him once, were looking positively ill at the thought. This is why I want Naruto and Sasuke back on their feet. Hinata refused to look back at her teammates because no matter what she saw, it wasn't going to do her focus any favors right now. Nobody we have left stands a chance unless they're as powerful as me. That or they're a taijutsu god. She looked left again. Might Guy had a very interesting expression on his face. It was the expression of someone whose entire life had been leading up to this moment. Hinata. He shouted. I would like very much to accompany you to fight Madara Uchiha. She couldn't help but smile back at him, just a little. Permission granted. Let's go. Excellent. Guy turned forwards. In front of them, a very large writhing monster stood behind a very small and infinitely more terrifying man. The taijutsu master, grinning like a maniac, Hinata was quickly trying to take back any statements she'd made on his objectivity, held out an arm and made a thumbs up. Ladies and gentlemen. He shouted. It has been an honor. 8th gate, oh, shit, thought Hinata, open. He plunged the thumb into his chest. Madara scowled. What is that? He demanded. Tensigen. Replied Zetsu, sounding agitated for the first time Madara had heard. Hamura's dojutsu. Opposite side of the family tree. Oh, this is probably why Obito wanted me to keep an eye on her. Can I beat her? Madara asked, simply. It's an equal dojutsu to yours. Zetsu replied, equally simply. Powers? Fragile power-up, chakra nullification. I don't know if she can use the truth-seeking orbs or not. Madara's eyes narrowed. Unknowns. How he hated them. He'd only been confident taking on Hashirama because there hadn't been any alternatives. That and, inside, he'd known he had the capacity to win. But this girl, as much as he ached to tousle with her, the plan was too close to fruition to risk it now. Slow her down. He instructed. What? Zetsu sounded affronted. If I try and possess her with that cloak, she'll be able to. You want this as much as I do. Can you keep her occupied for another 10 seconds? Madara interrupted. There was a millisecond pause. Yes, came the reply, and then Zetsu was gone. Madara jumped backwards, landing atop the growing 10 tails, and waited. Naruto's eyes opened, and he was laying on his back in his mindscape. The room was darker than usual, lit only by a few floating lights high above him, but that was more than enough to illuminate that he was still in a bloody sewer. Getting real sick of this place, he grumbled, sitting up. QB. You there? Gone, for the most part, said another voice. Naruto turned to see some dude in a white robe, apparently. Sure, why not? Nothing else in here makes sense. There are fragments. The dude admitted, gesturing up at the air above them. See those? You've got chakra from all 9 bijou up there. Kurama knew all the tricks you can pull with something like that, of course. Love that guy. Cool? Naruto stood, taking the young man in. He looked entirely unobtrusive, really. Brown hair, paler skin than standard, Hyuuga. I'm more used to voices in my head than you'd think, but usually there's some reason for them to show up. Oh, my bad. The guy jumped up, holding out a hand, grinning a wide, friendly grin. Good to meet you. I'm Ashura Otsutsuki. Professional shitbag extraordinaire. Oh, wait, you can get that as a profession? Naruto smiled back, shaking the hand. I've just been doing it in my off time. Oh, don't put yourself down, you're a natural. Ashura chuckled, stepping back. So, yeah. Why am I in your head? Great question. I'm sort of a ghost? A ghost? Naruto deadpanned. Sort of. To be fair, this is like the first time this has happened properly. I'm not super sure on the process. Ashura looked a little sheepish. I'm your ancestor. But like, hella far back. My dad's the sage of 6 paths. Oh. Naruto blinked. For real? Yep. Damn. My dad's the 4th Hokage, which beats basically everything except that. Yeah, Pops is pretty cool. Anyway, since I'm basically Ninja Jesus, when I died I turned into a Force ghost, and this is that. It's pretty neat. Ashura stuffed his hands in his pockets and turned away. Right, yeah, shit, we should probably focus. We've got stuff to decide, most importantly, what we're doing about your ongoing NDE. Naruto frowned. NDO, near-death experience, got it. How do I know more modern vocab than you? Hey, fuck you, I literally never went to school. He. Ashura sniggered. But yeah, you're totes dying. Bummer. Naruto frowned and sighed. All right, hit me. What's the gimmick? Gimmick? Ashura asked. The gimmick. Chekhov's gun if they bothered to hint it earlier, Deus Ex Machina if they didn't. Naruto cracked his knuckles. How you gonna get me back in the fight? You really want to go back out there? Ashura checked, looking concerned. You've got no bijou anymore. No, KCM. And your body has literally no chakra in it right now. No big deal. Naruto waves his hand dismissively. I'll manage. There's a bunch of natural chakra around if I plan it right. I can probably get like a full 100 clones in Sage mode. At the very least, I can support Sasuke. The 10 tails might end up taking all the natural chakra in the immediate area. The ghost warned. Wow, you say that like I give a shit. Naruto looked him dead in the eyes. Buddy. I don't care what the odds are. You're talking to the kid who became a ninja on 0 talent, 0 real education, 0 friends, and a power source that actively wanted to kill him. I'll crawl over to Madara if I have to. You won't let anything stop you? Ashura asked. Naruto smirked. I never have before. Ashura looked at him for a moment. Then made a relieved noise. Thought so. You're perfect. Ah. That wasn't a compliment Naruto had ever received before. Excuse me? You aren't me, Naruto Uzumaki. But you've certainly inherited some of my traits. Ashura walked up and put a hand on his shoulder. The most important one of which, by far, is determination. The drive to keep trying even when everyone tells you can't succeed. In you, Naruto, is a burning desire to prove the world wrong. HM? Naruto tilted his head. Oh, sure, kinda. At first. But I've actually met some real nice people since this whole shebang started. People I need to protect. He shrugged. I'm not trying to prove the world wrong, here. I'm trying to keep it safe. Ashura looked surprised, for a moment. Then he laughed aloud. Oh, even better. Then you've learned what I had the hardest time learning. Naruto Uzumaki, I choose you. Wait, was that a Pokemon? There was a bright flash. Sasuke woke up in his mindscape and looked around, extremely confused. His, of course, was carefully and artfully designed, a replica of the Uchiha district, though with Naruto and Hinata's individual homes dropped in certain key places. He'd even built in a day-night cycle, so the moon was hanging high in the sky and illuminating everything in not the cool white he was used to. It was red. He looked up to the roof of his own house, and narrowed his eyes. Who are you, and how are you affecting my mindscape? He asked the dark-haired figure in a white robe. Because I'm Indra Otsutsuki. The man replied, looking down at him. His eyes were red, with 3 tomo. Fuck you, I can do whatever I want. Oh. Fair enough. Sasuke shrugged, then frowned. Hold on, did you knock me out? In a way. Indra dropped down, landing on the gravel pathway and walking over to him. Though the biological process would have happened regardless. Sasuke, you mind telling me what in the 7 hells you were doing? Mind telling me why you're such an asshole? Sasuke retorted, before he could help himself. Well, considering the only reason I'm here is because of how similar we are, that's what my brother would call a self-burn. Indra replied, crossing his arms. For real though. You were literally just killing yourself. Oh, right, that. Sasuke shrugged. Naruto was dying. I made him not die. You weren't saving him. You were trying to pump chakra into an ex-Jinchuriki. Indra replied, flatly. You were about to join him. Okay, admittedly, I was mid-panic at the time. Sasuke allowed. But I needed to keep him alive long enough for someone to come and resurrect him, so it worked out. Why bother? Sasuke's eyes narrowed again. That was too far. Excuse the fuck out of you? His bijou was extracted. His combat ability was greatly diminished. You're fighting for your life. Indra listed. Some might say that you are wasting your time and should have left him in order to fight alongside Hinata. Direct me to the people who say so, and I'll go kick their asses. Sasuke replied hotly, a flame of righteous indignation blooming in his stomach. 2 problems with that statement. Problem 1, Naruto could kill Madara with 2D rank jutsu and a paperclip if he really had to. Anyone who ever decides he isn't the biggest threat in the room, whatever state he's in, is making a fatal error. Sasuke leaned back. Problem 2, he's my teammate. That means he's family. I shouldn't need to qualify that with anything else. Indra looked at him curiously for a while. No. He said eventually, slumping slightly. You shouldn't. If only I had thought the same, but I suppose that's why you're here. We didn't just need a pair who could follow in our footsteps, as so many have before you. We need two brothers who can be better. He straightened. Sasuke Uchiha. Indra said. I choose you. Wait, was that a Pokemon? There was a bright flash. Reference? Said Naruto and Sasuke at once, before immediately turning to see each other. Naruto. Sasuke. They collided into each other. Holy fuck, dude, I was so worried. You were worried? I thought I was dead. I thought you were dead. I feel like my situation was worse. Fuck off, I had to watch. Across from them, stood nearby in the empty white void, Ashura glanced sheepishly across at Indra. Can we are not hugging. Indra stated, not looking at him. Please? No. It's been millennia. Tough. You're no fun. Ashura pouted. A ghost of a smile crossed Indra's face. Nope. Children, please. All of you. Boomed an old voice. We have a limited amount of time, and I have a lot of dope exposition to drop on you, so we'll have to be quick. Naruto and Sasuke extricated themselves from each other and turned to see God. Sasuke guessed, at the exact same time that Naruto said Gramps. Neither, I'm afraid. Said a man who did look an awful lot like Hiruzen Sarutobi. Except that he had two Rinnegan in his eyes, a black staff across his lab, and a great red Rinnegan with Sharingan Tomo in it. Rinne Sharingan? Sharingan? Oh yeah, and he was floating. I'm the guy they've been referencing since, like, the very start of this whole thing. I believe your teammate has already met my brother. He told them. My name is Hagoromo Otsutsuki. The Sage of Six Paths Hinata looked across at Guy, and in absolute horror, thought, oh, fuck, I don't know if I can heal that. Hearts aren't meant to do that. On the other hand, Guy looked like he was being possessed by Ares, Hades, Zeus, Son Goku, the Bijou and the anime character, and General Chaos all at once. His hair was red, his skin was black, watching from a distance, internally gave Guy the N-word pass, and the air around him was literally on fire. It was terrifying, and that was good. If Hinata's instincts were screaming at her to stay the hell away from him, hopefully Madara's might be doing the same. She focused back on their target, and the Tensigan was the only reason she didn't get her head punched off. She spun back to Guy in shock as she ducked, and his fist thrust barely over her. For his following kick, she had to jump up, and wouldn't have been able to avoid the elbow that came next if not for Guy freezing up in place, muscles clenching and pain on his face. What the hell? She demanded, then froze, as she saw the shadows crawling across her once teacher's body. You know, I must admit. Tooted the black, chakra-built thing attached to Guy. I really wasn't expecting any of your ilk to become a real problem. Especially after that nonsense with the clan massacre, which, by the way, I had nothing to do with. Zetsu? Hinata gaped. You can fight? Not really, no. Zetsu chuckled. But he can. Oh no. Hinata. The half of Guy's face that remained his own was staring at her pleadingly. Run. I can't, and then he blasted towards her. You're the Sage of Six Paths? Naruto's jaw dropped. Yes. That is what I just said. Replied Hagoromo. Oh, man. Sasuke blew out a breath. Yeah, the world's kinda gone to shit since you left. Oh, I'm aware. Hagoromo rolled his eyes. Even though I left someone the duty of making that not happen. Hey! I'm not immortal either, Dad. Ashura shouted from the sidelines. No, I suppose not. The sage sighed. I would like to blame it all on Black Zetsu, but I suppose humanity will always be driven to conflict in some degree. Whether that desire is greater than their desire for companionship and community, well, I suppose that remains to be seen. Oh yeah, speaking of Black Zetsu. Sasuke held up a hand. What in the name of your left testicle is actually going on? Right. Exposition. Hagoromo waved a hand, and a tapestry appeared in the space behind him, unrolling to reveal is that a PowerPoint presentation? Naruto snorted. And what's wrong with that? Hagoromo narrowed his eyes, flicking a finger and causing the title History of the World to appear with a very flashy animation. It was in Comic Sans. Dad Indra sighed, not now, son, I haven't been able to dramatically explain anything for millennia. Let me have this. Hagoromo coughed, and his voice dropped by about an octave. He flicked his finger, and the screen did one of those showy particulate transitions as it switched to the next slide. Now then. Even I do not have the complete story. For that, you will have to wait until I don't know, a sequel anime starring your children. Regardless, a long time ago, there was a world. It contained mankind and an abundance of other life, from the mighty beasts to the smallest insects to the grasslands and trees. Conjured by, or perhaps responsible for, this life, was an energy field. One that surrounds and penetrates all living things, the Force. Sasuke breathed. No. Nature energy, Sage Chakra. Naruto looked like his mind had been blown. Oh my god, Senjutsu is totally just the Force anyway. Hagoromo interrupted. Certain beings, the sage creatures, came to be. Born of the natural energy and capable of harnessing it. So the world remained for some time until she came. The slide changed to reveal a woman with white hair, pale skin, and Byakugan. Kagaya Otsutsuki. My mother. Wow. That's coming out of absolutely nowhere. Naruto blinked. Sure would suck if she showed up last second and replaced the final boss fight. It sure would. Hagoromo nodded. Let's hope that doesn't happen. Now, Kagaya brought something with her. A seed, or perhaps an egg. It was both plant and creature, the ultimate tool of the Otsutsuki clan. What it grew into was something called the Shinju tree. An enormous tree with roots that slowly spread across the entire planet. It fed upon natural energy, grew, and bore fruit. Sasuke frowned. Wait, you said this Kagaya chick came. First of all, he came, second of all, came from where exactly? Space. Hagoromo answered. You're kidding me. Nope. Specifically, another dimension of space. At least I think so, they certainly can travel between dimensions. Hagoromo shifted, almost nervously. This may be somewhat hard to believe. But the Otsutsuki clan is a clan of dimension-hopping space wizards. They seed life-bearing planets with god trees, consuming all life on them, bringing home the fruit to use as fuel, and abandoning the husks they leave behind. Wow. Sasuke summarized. If I hadn't been fighting a snake man in a cave with a sentient shark sword and the summoned spirit of my dead brother less than an hour ago? There is no way I would believe you. But at this point pretty much anything is possible. But our planet isn't a dead husk. Naruto pointed out. I mean, not that any of us have felt really alive in a while, EYO. He made finger guns, then high-fived Sasuke. No, for real though, what happened? Most planets that the Otsutsuki farmed were populated only by mere animals. Yet humanity was sentient. They were equal to the Otsutsuki in intellect, if not in sophistication or power. And the Otsutsuki were compatible with them. Hagoromo coughed. Kagaya fell in love. Naruto swooned, while Sasuke made a grossed-out face. Indeed. Mother grew fond of a certain human ruler, and the Sage of Six Paths was blushing. Look, you can extrapolate what happened next. Regardless, Kagaya decided that she didn't actually want to destroy the entire world. So, she betrayed her clan and did the unthinkable, ate the fruit of the Shinju tree. Unprocessed, pure, with absolutely no idea what the consequences would be. As it turns out, the result was this. He pointed at his own head. The Rinne Sharingan. And also Rinnegan too, because, why not? Kagaya suddenly held all of the chakra in the world. Ninjutsu chakra, of the kind you are almost used to. For that is what the God Tree does, convert the natural variety into the much more malleable, standard version. Mother ruled as a benevolent goddess, became the most powerful being in the world, but only the world. She feared that the Otsutsuki would learn of her betrayal and send pursuers to reclaim what she had stolen and destroy all she cared about. So she enacted a power known as the Infinite Tsukuyomi. Sasuke winced. Having seen the ordinary version of the jutsu, I'm very much afraid of what it can do with the infinite prefix stuck in front of it. It was about what you might expect, from the name. Hagoromo explained. It allowed her to entrap living souls in the grasp of the Shinju tree, showing them endless dreams while draining the chakra from their bodies. She only did it to certain groups at a time, but humanity still began to fear her. Those that were entrapped became what you know today as Zetsu. Oh, fuck. Naruto muttered. And the very first human to receive this treatment, whom Kagaya allowed to maintain his consciousness and granted certain special powers to, was her human husband, who you now know as Black Zetsu. Oh, fuck. Sasuke exclaimed. She put her husband in a tree? And turned him into a fucking shadow demon? From what I'm told, Mother was changed after eating the fruit. Hagoromo sighed. Perhaps the consequences were greater than she thought. Still not seeing how we're all still alive and well, though. Naruto pointed out. And not, also in a tree. Hagoromo smiled. For that, you may thank me and my brother. We were born some time after she ate the fruit, but before she started treeing people. What Mother didn't realize for some time was that we had inherited a significant portion of her chakra. I developed the Rinnegan, and my brother Hamura, the Tenseigan. But as we slowly discovered what she was doing, what she would do to us if she found out, we hid them from her. We went to the sage creatures to learn what she wasn't telling us, and they taught us how to wield the weapon she could not, natural energy, pure and unaltered. We became the first sages. Naruto didn't break eye contact, but held a hand out to his side and beckoned. Sasuke obligingly pulled a scroll from his pocket, unsealed it to reveal a box of popcorn, and handed some over. Of course, with our mother's dojutsu, there was no way to hide our burgeoning powers from her forever. When we were still young men, not much older than yourselves, she grew enraged and attempted to reclaim what we had stolen from her. With our newfound senjutsu abilities, we were able to fend her off. Until Hagoromo pinched his forehead. Have I mentioned that Kagaya was absolutely batshit crazy? It was implied. Naruto answered, through a mouthful of popcorn. Right. Well, as far as she was concerned, she needed sage chakra to combat ours. And the perfectly logical way to do that? She merged with the Shinju tree. Sasuke blinked. Like fusion in Dragon Ball? With a tree? Yes. Like in Dragon Ball. Hagoromo looked less than pleased with the comparison. She became a true monster, inside and out. A beast that felt nothing but hunger for power. She became the 10 Tails. Oh, fuck, said Naruto and Sasuke, simultaneously. And then we had to fight it. Hagoromo smirked at their expressions. It was myself and my brother against the most powerful creature on the planet. And let me tell you, it was fucking biblical. It was Hinata's turn to be absolutely bricking it, and oh boy, was she using that opportunity to its fullest. Why did this have to happen to me? She screamed, desperately flying away from her pursuer. Might Guy was not demonstrating the incredible taijutsu prowess that had earned him the nickname the Magnificent Green Beast, though Hinata suspected he might have started that entirely on his own. He was swinging at her with reckless abandon, wild kicks and haymakers, replacing his ordinarily flawless technique. Of course, that would be because his actions were being controlled by an inexperienced puppeteer, and Guy himself was fighting back against every single move. You are awfully resilient, you know that? Black Zetsu tooted, from the other side of Guy's face. For goodness sake, I'm only trying to make you murder a child, Hinata. Guy shouted at her, struggling to even get the words out. Flee. My body will give out in just a few seconds. I can't. She shouted back, grimacing. Even besides the fact that she knew he would die when this technique ended, a few seconds was all Madara would need to absorb the 10 tails. The Jubi's power in the hands of someone actually cognizant of it? The very concept terrified her. Desperately, she turned aside 2 of Guy's punches, then twisted around and brought an axe kick down on his head. Guy blurred. Space itself seemed to bend around him, and his third punch took her in the stomach before her next attack could land. Without the Tensiken cloak, it would have obliterated her entire torso. As was, it only tore a gaping hole in it, sending her tumbling away to crash through a nearby rock and land on the ground. Her cloak had shattered upon the impact, because of course it had, which left her bleeding profusely onto the stone on her knees and significantly slower as Guy blasted down towards her and just stack all your powers, use all your powers right now. 4th gate open. She shouted, using Kesho Deketsu to cover Guy in crystal as her skin flashed red, then white, as her Vishnu covered her body and blocked off the hole in her stomach. He shattered through the crystal immediately, but it bought her barely enough time to dive haphazardly away as his fist buried into the earth just beside her head. She froze him there again, making hand seals, and then when he'd ripped free he was faced by half a dozen shadow clones, which he tore rapidly through but not before 2 or 3 of them could punch him with Tenketsu strikes. Not that any of those did anything. Blocking his chakra points in this state was like trying to close the top of an erupting volcano. Kesho Deketsu Chidori Sharp Spear. She hurled her strongest standard attack at him as he turned back to her. A perfectly ordinary punch obliterated it, and he charged. Oh, come on. Maybe the Kage are having a better time of it than I am? Ada Ayak. Reikage roared, leading the charge of some of the world's strongest ninja on the forming 10 tails. A very much not distracted Madara Uchiha glanced at them. Retreat! Reikage screamed, leading the charge of some of the world's strongest ninja away from a storm of fire and a giant blue sword. Fuck. Hinata grit her teeth and span into a lion fist Kesho Deketsu heavenly spin. That was barely able to block one kick from Guy, giving a clone time to substitute with her to stop the following punch from burying into her head. Her Tensiken glowed blue as she tried to call up another counter-chakra cloak, but she was still inexperienced and it took time, something she absolutely did not have. When were you planning on telling us you were the world's most powerful man? She shouted at Guy, genuinely a bit miffed about it. Seriously, Might Dai had only been 7 swordsman level with the 8th gate, what bullshit was this? Then again, Dai had still been a genin even as a grown man, while Guy had been a rival to Kakashi, who is almost Kage level. Humility is a very youthful trait. Came the predictable response. And even I was not aware of the duck. She did, then jumped up to avoid a low sweep. Guy grabbed her foot and yanked her back down, slamming her 10 feet deep into the floor. Well, that leg's broken. She pulled out a certain lightning release technique she'd used once against Sai, blowing up everything around her and allowing her to hop up on her good leg, landing some distance away and firing a bolt of electricity at Guy. It hit him. It didn't really do anything though. Hurry up, Madara Black Zetsu muttered, whirling Guy's body to face her again. I've only got a few more milliseconds here, forcing her broken leg back into place, not so much healing it as using the Vishnu to ignore the problem, and Nada was able to smile. Zetsu said earlier that he wasn't sure how the Tensiken worked. He doesn't know. I know he's telling the truth. She turned and charged for the 10 tails. Oh no you don't. Zetsu snarled, charging after her. Guy's body was still faster than her, and she'd barely made it halfway before he was almost within punching distance of the back of her head. Her wings blasted air faster than they ever had before, her 360 visions simultaneously tracking Zetsu's rate of approach and the distance between her and her target. To her relief, she was barely able to make it. Not to the 10 tails, of course. To a long, thin fissure in the ground she'd spotted, formed by a missed attack from a rampaging Jubido. She grabbed the lip with both arms and ignored the burn as she flung herself downwards, thrusting her wings outwards to dig into the rocks to either side of her and halt her descent. For those at home keeping track, this meant that she was now hurting basically everywhere. Zetsu wasn't able to stop Guy fast enough. He went careening right over the gap before trying to slide to a stop. By which point, Hinata had already jumped back up and started running away again. Because really, how else was she going to beat my fucking Guy? Get back here! Zetsu snarled, charging right back after her, but he stumbled and fell to one knee. Damn it! He hissed, trying to stand once more, and collapsing again. That was what Hinata had been waiting for. She about turned and tore back towards him. No. No, no, not now. Zetsu growled, grin finally falling from his face. Just a few more seconds. Hinata wasn't giving him a few more seconds. She sprinted in, batting away a weak attempt at a block, and pulled one arm back, generating a lion fist. The Tensiken cloak wasn't charged yet, but if he was made out of chakra, this should still work. Get the fuck out of my teacher! She snarled, throwing her arm forwards. It didn't reach its destination. Guy's fist snapped out, grabbing her about the neck and lifting her off the ground, before slamming her into the floor. She gasped in pain, vision blurring, neck damaged, possibly seriously, even as Guy's voice screamed a pained no. 3 lessons, little girl. Zetsu chuckled, clearly having a whale of a time even as his host's body burned beneath him. Lesson 1, I may know little about the Tensiken, but I worked with Neji long enough to understand the Gokyai. Lesson 2, your eye's truth-seeing relies on observation of biochemistry, which I don't have. But I learned rather quick how to fake the little signs that a truth or lie gives off. Lesson 3, if you maintain a facade of perfect confidence for long enough, and then it drops, people will scramble to capitalize on the perceived weakness. He pulled his other fist upwards. And Madara would be furious at me for wasting time gloating like this, so let's minimize the rest of the risk. He was right, after all. I am desperate to see MT Darling again. What the hell does that, goodbye, little Hamira? Hinata thrust up with a Chidori, but it barely grazed the skin of Guy's shoulder. It was nowhere near enough. Face a rictus of hurt and rage fist tore down towards her head.
Thank you for your views, likes, subscriptions, and overall support of my ongoing efforts to bring great content to all of you. Check out my Patreon for more mature fanfiction. The link is in the description and like everywhere on my channel.